Silver Company. Church and into the white man's school, we'll be brainwashed by the white man's educational system, and we'll continue to look down upon ourselves, and we'll continue to be beggars. Tuesday will mark 55 years since two of America's most influential intellectuals faced off in a debate in England at Cambridge University's debating society, the Cambridge Union. It was a debate about race, one that still fascinates and resonates today and is the subject of a new book. NewsHour Weekend Zachary Green has our story.
The trouble in America where the Negro community is concerned is a very complicated one. It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace, and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you.
On the evening of February 18th, 1965, two cultural giants, James Baldwin and William F. Buckley Jr., squared off in person for the first time. More than 50 years later, the debate still resonates. Political science professor Nicholas Bucola of Linfield College in Oregon was so taken with the skirmish that he wrote a book about it. The Fire is Upon Us.
It just seemed to me just such a dramatic moment and such an important one. These two movements that did so much to define 20th century political history. To have these two figures clashing was just irresistible.
Though Baldwin and Buckley were about the same age, their lives could not have begun more differently. Baldwin grew up in poverty in Harlem and went from waiting tables in New York's Greenwich Village to become a literary critic and eventually a renowned novelist and essayist. Buckley, a scion of wealth, graduated from Yale and became an influential magazine editor and columnist. Both wrote extensively about race in 1950s and 60s America, though from drastically different points of view. Buckley made his position clear in a 1957 National Review piece called Why the South Must Prevail, in which he contended that white Southerners are entitled to, quote, take such measures as are necessary to prevail politically and culturally over black citizens.
And Buckley says explicitly that they have this right and duty because they are, and this is a quote, for the time being, the advanced race. And he calls on people in the South, they have an obligation to promote the cultural equality of black people, and that eventually they need to allow them in to empower them with full citizenship.
What did Baldwin think was at the heart of the racial divide in America?
What Baldwin said from some of his earliest writings on this is that these
I'd like to say one thing. He was right. I could be a millionaire fugitive if I was greedy and worrying about myself. But one thing
You could give it away.
No, one thing I like to say.
You could become a Canadian and fight and send the money to Elijah.
Oh, no, this is not my purpose, and he don't need my pennies.
Well,
He
but
don't
some
need my
people do.
pennies. Well, I would like to say this, that the flesh and the blood of my people and their freedom is more important. Now, one thing I'd like to say real quick, when you say you can ask some questions. When I first came to America from England, they didn't have the air conditions, the Buckley show, and the jet planes. They had to ride stagecoaches, watch Indians scab and kill their wives, no medicine, no penicillin. But nevertheless, the first whites kept coming. They cut down the trees, the underbrush, until they made a way for you. Then they went and got up some slaves and worked all over the country. But they died, but they never saw this, but they made a way for you. In World War II, the Japanese, it's like didn't mean nothing. Some of them had planes to assassination. He knew he would die. He ran the plane directly into the ship for his people in the future, for his children. Now, but black people, we've been taught that we will never be free until some will have to die, some will have to give up wealth, their loved ones, and their health. So what I'm doing is for myself and for justice for black people. Running will kill it all and make me a coward. You understand?
I see what you mean.
So I would rather go to jail.
Sure. Mr. Greenfield.
I've heard you speak before about what you're doing now and how you enjoy it. But I just wonder, being quite quite honest with us. Are there times when you miss being heavyweight champ of the world?
No, they miss me.
I know that.
I don't miss it. I'm not to missing it. See, I would like to say one thing. Whites have been, you may say, why is he always talking about whites and blacks? Because everything happened to me is racial. It's all based on race and religion. You understand? And it boys, I know Joe Namath, George Hamilton, get out of the army and do everything, and I'm the scapegoat. You know? So I got to think like this since I'm a victim of all this.
You know there are white kids in jail for 5 years.
Right,
In fact,
right,
those
I
Baltimore
understand.
guys didn't get 2 years. They got 6, which is
Well, I
more
heard
than
they
you.
got 2.5.
No,
You talking about the priest?
Berrigan got
Well,
6.
it must have been Wisconsin.
No.
But what I would like to say is this. Your question was,
You miss it sometimes. You miss
No.
being the best fighter in the world.
no, I am the best. I don't miss being
But
the
you'll never
best.
be able to prove that again.
Oh, I don't have to prove it. Can you name somebody that
Not
can
right
as much
now.
as hit me? No. So I'm not, see, so you've been brainwashed to think that I'm not the champ.
No.
Who's been worshiping sticks and stones. Even if you find a Christian worshiping sticks and stones, you don't address him as though he's a heathen, worshiping sticks and stones. If you find a man drunk, do you address him as a drunk? Or do you address him as a human being with intelligence? Say, man, you should be ashamed of yourself, getting in this stick, giving yourself to this weakness. Look what you're doing to your wife. Look how you're shaming yourself before your children. We don't apply the same rules of intelligence in religion that we apply in our daily life. No, I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, that much of the Quran is yet to be understood by the Arabs. In order to understand the predicate and the subject, they need to study the Jewish people and the Christian people more. They need to study the books that have been revealed to those people so they can see what problems was the Holy Quran addressing, what problems was Allah addressing through his Prophet Muhammad that were existing in the text of the Jews and in the text of the Christians. Don't isolate yourself from this world that God was speaking to. God was addressing this whole world. Atheists, Christians, Jews, and whatever they are, Allah addressed the whole world through Prophet Muhammad. And anyone who thinks he can come from Arabia and close his eyes to the whole world and teach us the Quran is a blind fool. He cannot understand the Quran in any appreciable fashion until he first understands the environment that he's in. And when he leaves Arabia and comes to America, he's in a drastically different environment. So he should stop worrying about the superficial things, the rituals, the ritualistic things. He should give up his fear of losing the things that are close to him in his Arabian environment. And he should become conscious of the things that have been lost from the Jewish environment, from the Christian environment that God intended for them. And he revealed the Quran to guide us back to the way not only Muslims, Jews, Christians, all of us. We have to accept that Abraham is our father. Adam is our father. Also, Abraham is our father. Adam represents the common man. The common man is our father. But also, Abraham is our father. We have been raised by our common fathers, and we have been raised by God's prophets. The first father is a common man. The second father is the prophet of God. Isn't that right? God says of Abraham, Abikum Ibrahim, your father Abraham. Yes, so that's our father. Why he didn't say your father Moses? Moses was a prophet. Why he didn't say your father Jesus? Jesus was a prophet. Why he said your father Abraham? Because Abraham is a prophet whose role was that of a parent, a father responsible for his children. Abraham was raised up among pagan people who had lots of ignorance, primitive ignorance. And Abraham was guided to search for truth with a rational eye. He observed the stars and the sun and everything and he saw in the movement of sky a sign that there was a creator, a planner, a designer behind all of this, and that he's not one, two, he's not three, pardon me, two, three, and four. He's not many, he's one. He saw one nature, one creation, and one pattern, one design dominating throughout the whole creation. And he says there's one God, and there is no God associated with that God. Everything else is servant. Everything else is creation and servant. Only one God. Abraham said that. Then Abraham was moved to even share his own life, the life of his own Lord, to serve people. Abraham is a symbol of charity. He was ready to kill his own son to please God. But God told him that having the desire was the same as effecting it. That he had not, God didn't want him to kill his son. But he had shown faith because he was willing to kill his son. That even his own child could be sacrificed. He was going to please God. So Abraham was moved by two strong influences: the search for truth, rational motivation, and he was moved by faith in God, a faith that did not weaken even when his own child life was at stake. His faith did not weaken. And God told him to kill the ram, the sheep. Kill the lamb. Let that be the sacrifice. And feed it to the people. So he took one of his lambs and he shared it with his neighbors, with his people, with fellow men. Is that right? So he, instead of killing his son, he practiced charity. He practiced charity. So this brought Abraham to be also the symbol of charity, of charitableness in our religion. He's a great symbol of charity. And he's a symbol of rational searching for truth. And the symbol of strong faith. He's all of these. Is that right? Isn't that in every human being that really loves God sincerely, that really want to be right with God? Aren't those the things that's staring in him, moving him on? A desire to be right by others. Is that right? A desire to be truthful. A desire to be rational and not stupid or silly. We're not satisfied with a religion that's mystified and superstitious. We want reality. The human nature presses us to find reality.
No, we're done.
Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to welcome everyone. Inshallah, we'll open with a prayer from the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. In the name of God, the beneficent, the most merciful, the Redeemer, verily, in time, men are lost, except for those who come together with belief, righteous works, counseling each other in truth and in patience. And this verse in the Quran speaks to all of humanity through our sojourn in this reality of life, is that verily we are lost. And God puts the exception of those who believe in God, and then who not just believe, but who do good works, who do good things, and who come together, encouraging each other to be patient in times of struggle, in times of sojourn, and to find solace with each other. And we thank him for letting us be amongst those who believe and amongst those who are striving to do right. In this gathering today, we ask that he bless each and every one of you who are here. We ask he bless those who put this program together. We ask that he blesses these young people who are here, that they learn that which is beneficial and that they benefit from that in which they learn. May God's blessings again be upon everyone that is in our presence, and those who are not able to be here, may God bless them as well. Amen.
I don't have Dr. Salam's. Come on out the kitchen. Come on, Dr. Salam. Dr. Salam is our inspiration, our aspiration, our innovator, and loves to do all things. And we appreciate her here for all the guidance she gives us and inspiring us to come together, especially on this African American history year that we're in. Without further ado, Dr. Salam.
Assalamu alaikum. We would like to bring our young people, we always want to engage them in anything of good that we're doing. And if they could just come forward and introduce themselves. You can come right in front of me, right in front of here. Be careful. You probably want to step down. Step in. Okay, right here. And so if you guys would welcome the audience, and then we'll have you introduce yourself. Just give your name and what you'd like. Well, thank you for being a part, and we want to give you certificates at the end. So Sister Zaina works with the young people here at Masjid Al-Sharif. They're working on restarting their Sunday school that Amin Omar was heading up, Zahira Muhammad, Nayawiya. So some of those people have passed, but we are, as you see downstairs, we got a play area where they can enjoy themselves. We don't want them just to, always just be sitting among us and not anything relative to them. So thank you very much. We just wanted to see your beautiful face. They're growing up. You see how fast they grow. 1 minute they're babies, and next time you see them, they're up in age. Anyway, this is a collaborative activity today for Black History Month, African American History Month. We do have the African American History and Culture Foundation. That's something I founded in 2014 because I had been working since 2006 as a community liaison at Long Beach Jordan High School, taking students on HBCU college tours during our spring break. So once I retired, I want to do something else. And seeing you Muslims in your faces, obviously I've done, 20 plus years in the Sister Clara Muhammad School. I remember Imam Kareem Hassan, the building was being torn down, and we had a facility in the back, So he said, well, I want you to walk back here and tell me what you think. I said, I think it'll work. Don't ask me. I am the person that's going to make it work. So we persevered. And I was blessed. Actually, a real brief story. We were in Memphis, Tennessee, and Nur Salam, my husband at the time, my children's father, said, we're going to start a school. How are we going to start a school? He said, well, we're going to just start a school. He said, well, pay some retired teachers to come in here, and you and Sister Tahita, y'all oversee the teachers and make sure they're not teaching anything we don't want taught. We're teaching Islamic studies, but they can bring their credentials. And that's exactly what we did. And we were blessed to be a part of Dr. Zakiya Muhammad, whose collection we have there in Imam Haruma Luella's archive library. She was made the directress of all the schools when we went to North Carolina to meet with Imam Warith Muhammad at the Palmer Memorial Institute. So that's on your program too, but he was introducing us to, Ms. Charlotte Brown Hawkins and her idea of etiquettes. Coming out of slavery in America, a lot of attention we were putting on, okay, well, we now have to learn, these etiquettes. We're no longer, just in the slave house and don't have a fork or don't have this or that. And obviously, if you reflect as I do, the people transition so quick, I could hardly believe they were in slavery. They looking so good, as soon as they came out, as soon as they could get proper attire, they started wearing, proper attire, if that was something they was afforded, and had as an access. But again, so I left there, and then in '83 came back. I left Memphis, Tennessee, 79 to 83, Claire Muhammad School. And in 1983, in September, I started at the Claire Muhammad School in Los Angeles. And so I was a first, second grade combination teacher. Then I was going to school for my counseling, so I started counseling. So, the students there talking about counseling and careers and things like that. Then we decided to move to Atlanta, which was a fantastic experience at the Muhammad schools in Atlanta. Over here with Sister Claire Muhammad's picture, it shows, there are 50, 60 different colleges that those students have graduated from. They did not have a senior year or junior year at the time that I went. So I was, really excited. I had just gotten credential for administration and et cetera here in California. So I was able to assure the parents that, in our school system, we can get them in college, and get them in to the best of schools and with little or no money, okay? So our students was taking 4 years of foreign language, which was Arabic, 4 years of science, 4 years of math, so their transcripts was better than most. And so they were competing. One of the students, in fact, in Ibrahim's class, my youngest son, Ibrahim is here today, a dynamic class. I think there was 93. Yes, sir. Okay, so one of his classmates, we had her going all up and down Georgia in oration contests. Today, she's just been appointed over all of the juvenile courts. She's a juvenile judge, Mm-hmm. Ibrahim is a graduate of Cal State Dominguez. He's also gone back to get his mechanics at Compton and El Camino. And he really embodies a lot of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about, being on time, being at work, handling your business. When they laid everybody off at COVID up at Mercedes in Beverly Hills, they said, well, not you, Ibrahim, not you. So they had Ibrahim in the shop, right? Because he loved to learn, okay? But he come to work, and then they had him on the roadside service all night. So by the time he was going through that traffic, it was a bit much. But again, that was the caliber of the students. Jamila Kareem, she went to Duke, graduated in engineering, went back and majored in religious studies. Professor Espelman, our friend Suleiman Waziruddin Yusuf, may Allah be pleased with Yusuf and Edwina, their son, amazing. He's a medical doctor now. So we're on our way to a tour, as you see here, April 10th. And he said he'd be glad to talk with the students and come over to Morehouse School of Medicine. He's emergency medicine. But it went on. And that came from people like the people on the West Coast, Sister Ortiz, Sister Principal Amira, Joan came out of Atlanta, but I'm just saying we were just common people, but once you are taught and, if you notice, most of the people that come here, their children are really about education. So really, Islam it really kind of gives you a bachelor's degree just sitting listening, for years, but it does encourage study. During Ramadan, you're reading the entire Quran. But, most of our children excel, because of your culture, your parenting, your community is surrounding you and supporting you. And so we probably have a very high rate of higher education. And that's thanks to Imam Wardini Muhammad, who came on in 1975 after the death of his father, encouraging us, kind of really freeing us up, go back to school, the interfaith that he did all over the world. It was really very well received. And that was over 30 years of a lot of work, moving 1,000 miles an hour to get us from one ideology that worked, for a time, and that gave us still a lot. We still, here's a man with a 3rd grade education, and he's writing How to Eat to Live. And some of what he wrote still stands today with nutritionists and medical doctors, naturopathic doctors. They're saying, this is amazing, that you could actually follow that. He wasn't a doctor, but he knew, as he was taught by Farad Muhammad, a different way to eat, a simple way of eating and preserving your health and fasting and things like that. So again, after leaving out, I was summoned. My mother passed in 96, and my husband passed in 97, a year later. So, I had to, get back in the school system. So I worked 16 years at Jordan High School and retired. And as they said yesterday at the church, I was able, along with my colleagues, but personally, to bring 8,000 students to on-time graduation. They give us 500 students, to work with. But anyway, that was probably, counseling was probably a better calling for me. So again, I've worked with the schools, and today we're about honoring our pioneers. It's really a special occasion because, we may personally think about one or the other, but we don't always come together on a theme like those that have established, maintained, and worked to have schools for the disenfranchised. Sometimes we don't like those labels, but we were disenfranchised. If you got a franchise, a McDonald's franchise, you bringing in good money, but we were disenfranchised from our rights and our access, as really the tape was speaking. Dr. King just a moment ago spoke real clear about, groups that were able to come and get benefits, and then we're still kind of blocked. If I'm over here selling my oils, they're harassing me, but I could be somewhere else selling something else, food on the corner, and they may allow a pass on that. So we still have, as we know with George Floyd and all of the situations that we hear about, we're still dealing with being disenfranchised. Certainly, if they're trying to give you a record, that's disenfranchising you right away. I mean, we know the justice system is just not equal. And our tour in April is the social justice tour in honor of John Lewis, Congressman Lewis. So again, welcome to our program. It's going to be somewhat interactive here as we go through. It was really drum majors for the disenfranchised, from Frederick Douglass down to Muhammad Ali, and then Brother MC Ahmed Safir, pioneer in the city here, will engage a panel of 4 of those leaders. So can we call them out? You gonna call them out? Huh? Okay. So you see all of these people's names, and if any of them you feel akin to, like that, people are saying they're wearing shirts, I am Black history. So if we say Frederick Douglass, anybody wanna, call and want to respond to that, they say, well, I am Frederick Douglass. These people are so great. They weren't perfect, but they all left a legacy, and they all did what we do, right? Bring people under our little wing and mentor who we can. Whoever's ready. We ain't forcing nobody, but you ready to roll out with Marcus Garvey's theory, and obviously we have a giant here today, ma'am. Abdul Karim Hassan, an author and scholar, and I say that really, I watched his writing as he traveled the world with Imam Waruddin Muhammad, and he would come back and give a report. And it was written so clearly, and he's written a book, and his family, his mother was a trailblazer in that she was seeking it, she, Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, and after hearing Malcolm, then they came into the Nation of Islam. So that's a live, living legend and a family and a history there that we can really study. And the book is something I recommend to my students. I have several copies. So, Brother Ahmed Safir.
It's interesting when people come up, and as you study people around the world who have been able to overcome colonialization, enslavement, we have to give credit to the women. Now, I was reading about the San Manuel tribe, and when the men were around smoking peace pipes, I don't know what they had in them, but the women are the one that organized them to incorporate, to get legislation so that they could open up their casinos, and they started with bingo. So one thing, being involved with the 100 Black Men of Long Beach and the 100 Black Men of America, I told the group that we haven't stood on a real bedrock until we salute Black women. Now, brothers, I know we don't like to talk about it, but the fact is, we would not have made it through slavery if it hadn't have been for the Black woman. Now, I expect every man here to stand up and give an applaud for the women that are in our presence. Thank you. That doesn't take anything away from you going out hunting and bringing back some bear meat to the house. That has nothing to do with that. But it has to do with our own individual constitution and appreciation for those that allowed us and helped us get to where we are today. The panel we're going to have coming up now is the drum majors. The drum majors. That's well, see, doctor, thank you very much. Let me see, let me do it this way. I want anyone, when I say something, does it remind you, and you just holler out what it is. Let's see, Rumble in the Jungle. Oh, okay. Who else? Rumble in the Jungle. Who else would that, who put it together? Don King. Yes. How can I be sure that I'm going on the right road? That should have been on your table. Who said that? How can I be sure I'm going on the right road? George Washington Carver. It's not a contest. It's all right. What we do is we elevate ourselves. We want to learn to operate on the plus side of the number line, not the negative side of the number line. So we have Harriet Tubman. Does anyone have a quote from Harriet Tubman that they remember? Somebody just tell us what she did. Yes, sir. But they didn't what? They didn't think they were slaves. I would have freed more of my people, but they didn't think they were slaves. What does that mean? Someone over here tell us what that means. What was going through that person's head? Beg your pardon? Mind control? What does that mean? They didn't want to hear anything else. Anyone else? So, well, he's going to talk about Carter G. Woodson later on, but let's call him up. Let's call up L.C. Shabazz, and he'll be introducing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Mahdi Ali. He's going to be talking about Muhammad Ali. Muhyiddin Baker. He's going to be talking about Imam W.D. Muhammad. Halal Jihad. He's going to be Malcolm X. Give these four gentlemen a hand because I'm going to sweat them to death. Yeah. Bring your chair up here. Scoot over. Scoot your chair over there. There we go. There we go. You want to begin? You. Okay. Mahdi Ali. Give him a hand.
I am the greatest. Those are the words of Muhammad Ali. The greatest of all time. And today we hear many people talking about the GOAT. But I think the first we heard about the GOAT, the greatest of all time, I think it came from Muhammad Ali. When I was 13 years old, I grew up down in Arkansas, and I had a friend who had a lot of comic books. He had boxes of comic books, and he had Green Hornet. He had all kind of Betty Boop. Everybody you can think of, superhero, Superman, Batman. He had big boxes, and it gets real hot down in Arkansas in the summertime. So usually on the side of his house, it was shade, and you could find 10 or 15 people, brothers, I mean. We would go to his house, and he'd bring out his box of comic books, and we'd look in the comic books, and it had never occurred to me before. I'm reading these comic books, and there's the Green Hornet, and he's got a sidekick called Kato, and that was Rex Allen, he had a sidekick named Little Beaver. And I said, hey man, how come we got the same name as white folks? He said, man, you don't know that? I said, oh man, you dumb. And he told me that the reason why we have these names is because we were the property of the slave masters. We were enslaved, and we were given these names to show that we were their property. And I went into one of them bags like Robert De Niro. I mean, some of you might have seen that movie called Taxi Driver. And he was in the mirror, and he was talking to himself. After that day, every time I'd be at home and I'd be alone, I used to stand in the mirror and look at myself and say, who are you? You ain't no Bruce Jones. So in 1963, Cassius Clay at that time became aware of him, and he said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had bestowed upon him the beautiful name of Muhammad Ali. And he was my man. I always knew that I got to find out who I am. Now, everybody got a story. They can remember their first meeting, first time they met Muhammad Ali. Well, the first time I met Muhammad Ali was it was right after the Joe Frazier fight. And he came to Dudo's Music Center in Compton. And Dudo was charging $5 a head to get in to see Ali. So wasn't a lot of people there, but I paid my $5 and I went in, and Muhammad Ali came out and he said, turn the light on, I want to see the people. And everybody was asking questions. You doing this? Are you doing that? And Muhammad said, I ain't no leader. He said, I'll lead you to Elijah. Yeah, I'm a leader, all right. I'll lead you to Elijah. So I had one question for him. Where is the mosque? And he gave me the address. I think he's at 56 and Broadway. And it took a while, but I eventually made it to 56 and Broadway. And everybody remembers when everybody got a story about meeting Muhammad Ali. That was the first time I met him. And the last time I met him was in 1984. And I was working as an iron worker at the LA airport. And I took a friend of mine, trying to get him to go to the mosque with me. And he said, man, Muhammad Ali will probably be there. He wanted to meet Muhammad Ali. I didn't know if Muhammad was going to be there or not, but I told him, Muhammad will probably be there, man, so come on and go with me. So we went, and as soon as we walked around the corner, I saw that brown Corniche, and I know Allah was going to make my prediction true. Hey, man, Muhammad Ali's here. We went straight to the bathroom, and in walks Muhammad Ali. It's some of my fans. And Big E said, Muhammad, He didn't know what he said. I knew exactly what he said. I was over there. He had something on the back of his pants. I was brushing his stuff off his pants. He said, "Can you rumble?" I said, "No, but I can shoot a 357 Magnum." He said, I said, "Brother, you the reason I'm here." I said, "You remember when you came to do those music center?" I know he didn't remember that, but he said, I said, "You sent me." He said, "Was that you?" I said, "Yeah, man, you the one that sent me here." But if you've ever met Muhammad Ali, I think it was Maya Angelou that said, great people, sometimes the air or something around them, the air sparkles. And I remember seeing Muhammad Ali at Savior's Day, the last Savior's Day. All of a sudden, something happened. And everybody started looking around. It was Muhammad Ali and his brother going through the crowd. And it was as if there was a light on it. And he walked through thousands of people to the front. And I remember he gave $10,000. He had cash. $10,000 he donated. And then when he left the armory, man, it was like a bright light was on it. But so I already knew that my name was going to be Ali. When I was wearing the X, I knew that if I ever got a chance, if I ever changed my name, got a chance, my name would be Ali. And so today I'm Muhammad Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
Our next speaker will be L.C. Shabazz, speaking on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. The first time I heard about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I was a teenager, and I was playing Little League Baseball at Manchester Park, Manchester and Figueroa. And my coach was Fred Carter, and he was what we would call a Muslim sympathizer. And we would win a game, and we would say, "Well, Coach, where are we going to go? Wiener Schnitzel is right around the corner." And he said, "We ain't eating that no dang Wiener Schnitzel." But he took us there. He bought a hot dog. He said, "Now watch this." He threw the bun in the trash. He split open the hot dog, threw it on the ground. He said, "We're going to come back after we go where we're going, and then I want you to see something." During one of the practice games, he had me playing third base. And I said, "Coach, look, I'm an outfielder." He said, "Well, today you're going to be a third baseman." And a kid tried to steal third base, was on second base. And the catcher threw the ball to me, and I wasn't used to playing third base. So I just put the glove where I thought the ball should be. But the ball went over here, and I didn't move like this, and it hit the runner in the head. So the coach said, "You know, this is why you can't make the team. You play too much." And I said, "Well, we're playing. It's a game." And he said, "Go sit on the bench." I went and sat on the bench, and he had a stack of Muhammad Speaks on the bench. And said, "Coach, what am I going to do on the bench?" He said, "Read those newspapers." And that was the first time I ever picked up a Muhammad Speaks newspaper. And it happened to be at the time when Martin Luther King was leading the Children's Crusade in Birmingham. And I know I'd seen some things on the news, but it really struck me. People getting dogs sicked on them and fire hoses. And it shocked me. And I read the whole paper. And I got to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the center page. He always had, in the center page, always had one of his speeches. And I remember one of the early headlines was, "Education is the key." Anyone remember that headline? Education is the key. And it was in great big letters. My old man was a linotype operator, so he would say it was in 104 type, 104 pica type. So it was huge, and it was huge so you could see it. Like if you were standing in the back of the room like the brother in the beautiful tuxedo there, you could still see the headline. Another headline I remember was "Pay Your Debts." And I remember like scratching my head, and honestly, I was like, why am I going to pay my debts? The white man ain't going to be here in a year or two. But it was a wake-up moment for me too, because I wasn't paying my debts. And reading that headline and then reading the center fold, I started paying my debts. So now I got 850 credit rating, and I thank the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Another headline was "Black Man Unite." And so they've asked me to tell you something about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I feel like I'm not up to the task because there are people here who know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad firsthand who should be delivering this presentation. But I'll try anyway. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born October 7th, 1897. If he was alive today, he would be 126 years old. He was born in Sandersville, Georgia. His old man was a sharecropper and a lay preacher, Baptist lay preacher. And his mother was Mariah Hall, a homemaker and sharecropper. His education ended at the 4th grade. I know somebody said the 3rd grade, the 4th grade. Doesn't make really much difference. And it's interesting that someone who meant so much to all of us only went to the 4th grade. But that was in public schools. He married Clara Evans in 1917. And when he left Georgia, he said he had seen enough of the white man's brutality to last him 26,000 years. And it was his wife, Clara Muhammad, who first brought him to the mosque, where they actually heard from Master Farad Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed in 1975. We all know the rest of the story. His son, Warithuddin Muhammad, took over the helms of leadership and led the former Nation of Islam to Sunni Islam. They started the University of Islam in 1931, and Sister Clara Muhammad was the first teacher. And I know someone else is going to speak about the University of Islam, so I'm not going to go into great depth or detail about that. In fact, I'm going to end my remarks and turn the microphone back over to Brother. I do have a Muhammad Ali story. Brother Mahdi Ali said everybody has a Muhammad Ali story. A long time ago, I used to write for Muhammad Speaks newspaper. And me and Muhammad Ali, Brother Imam Hassan, and a number of other brothers caravanned to John Muir Junior High School. And I went to John Muir Junior High School. The editor of the paper, Muhammad Speaks at the time, Askia Muhammad, also went to John Muir Junior High School. So I walked up to Brother Muhammad and I pulled his coat and I said, since you're going to be speaking to the crowd, why don't you tell him the editor of Muhammad Speaks and the reporter from Los Angeles also went to Muhammad Speaks so that they can aspire perhaps a career in journalism. And he looked down at me and he said, when you fight Joe Frazier, you tell him. So with that, I turn the mic back over to Brother Ahmed Safir.
We'll get back to it. Yes, these stories what we're hearing, most Muslims have a journey. Most human beings have a journey that they're taking. It's so colorful and dramatic. What got us here, not much different than the way the Honorable Elijah Muhammad arrived to hear Master Fard Muhammad speaking. It was a meeting, and he attended the meeting. And you can learn so much in a meeting if you get up and go to the meeting. That's how meetings are. They are there to lift you up and not waste your time. Our next speaker is Halal Jihad, and he's going to speak on Malcolm X. Take this microphone and hold it to you.
Assalamu alaikum, my brothers. I'm going to speak on Malcolm X. I've never had a chance to meet him, unfortunately. But we know Malcolm X was an American Muslim minister and the human rights activist who was a prominent figure during the civil rights movement, a spokesman for the Nation of Islam until 1964. He was a vocal advocate for Black empowerment and the promotion of Islam within the Black community. He was born Malcolm Little in 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His father was a Baptist preacher and a follower of Marcus Garvey. That struck me more than anything. The family moved to Lansing, Michigan after the Ku Klux Klan made threats against them, though the family continued to face threats in their new home. In 1931, Malcolm's father was allegedly murdered by a white supremacy group called the Black Legionnaires. Though the authorities claim his death was an accident, Miss Little and her children was denied her husband's death benefits. The surviving family was so poor that Malcolm's mother, Louise Little, resorted into cooking dandelion greens from the street to feed her children. After she was committed to an insane asylum in 1939, Malcolm and his siblings were sent to foster homes or to live with family and friends. Malcolm excelled in school, but after one of his 8th grade teachers told him that he should become a carpenter instead of a lawyer, he lost interest in school, soon ended formal education, and as a rebellion youngster, Malcolm moved from a juvenile home in Madison, Michigan to the Roxbury section of Boston to live with an older half-sister, Ella. There he became involved in petty criminal activities in his teen years, known as Detroit Red from the reddish color in his hair. He developed into a street hustler, drug dealer, and leader of a gang of thieves in Roxbury and Harlem. While in prison for robbery
From 1946 to 52, Malcolm X underwent a conversion that even truly led him to join the Nation of Islam, an African-American movement that combined elements of Islam with Black nationalism. There, Malcolm X first encountered the teaching of Elijah Muhammad, head of the lost found Nation of Islam, of Black Muslims. Soon after, Malcolm adopted the last name X to represent his rejection of his slave name. His decision to join the nation also was influenced by decisions with his brother Reginald, who had became a member in Detroit and who was incarcerated with Malcolm in prison. In Massachusetts in 1948, Malcolm quit smoking and gambling and refused to eat pork. In keeping with the nation's dietary restriction, in order to educate himself, he spent long hours reading books in the prison library, even memorizing a dictionary. He also sharpened his forensic skills by participating in debate classes. Malcolm was released from prison after serving 6 years and went into become the minister of Mosque number 7 in Harlem, where his speaking skills and some in favor of self-defense gained the organization new admirer. The Nation of Islam grew from 400 members in 1952 to 40,000 members by 1960. His advocacy of achieving by any means necessary put him at the opposite end of the spectrum from Martin Luther King Jr. Nonviolent approach to gaining ground in the growing civil rights movement. Malcolm X politics also made him an enemy of the FBI, who conduct surveillance of him from his time in prison until his death. J. Edgar Hoover even told the agency's New York office to do something about Malcolm X. After his release from prison, Malcolm X helped to lead the Nation of Islam during the period of its greatest growth and influence. He met Elijah Muhammad in Chicago in 1952 and then began organizing temples for the Nation of Islam in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston, and in the cities in the South. He founded the Nation newspaper, Muhammad's Speech, which he printed in his basement of his home. And in his practice of requiring every male member of the Nation of Islam to sell an assigned number of newspapers on the streets as a recruiting and fundraising technique. He also articulated the nation's racial doctrine on the inherent of evil of whites and the natural superiority of blacks. Malcolm rose rapidly to become the minister of Boston Temple number 11, which he founded. He later became minister of Temple number 7 in Harlem, the largest and most prestigious temple in the nation after the Chicago headquarters. Elijah Muhammad then named him the nation representative of the Nation of Islam, second in rank of Muhammad himself. Under Malcolm's leadership, the nation claimed a membership of 500,000. Malcolm X expressed the pent-up anger, frustration, and bitterness of African Americans during the major phase of the civil rights movement. From 1955 to 1965, he preached on the streets of Harlem. then spoke at major universities such as Harvard University and the University of Oxford. I'm going to end that right here with Malcolm, inshallah.
Thank you very much. And our final panelist that we have the pleasure of presenting is Brother Mukhadeen. Brother Mukhadeen, W.D. Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. Warith Deen Muhammad. Where does one begin when trying to talk about Warith Deen Muhammad? May Allah reward him in paradise. He was a leader, a transformer. He was distinguished, accomplished, an ambassador, and recognized by leaders throughout the world for his contributions and accomplishments to Islam and humanity. There are way too many accolades to discuss in this setting. In fact, there could be a college course offered about W.D. Muhammad's life and accomplishments. Not one semester, maybe not even 2 semesters, maybe 3 or 4, to grasp his legacy and his accomplishments. So today, I'm just going to reflect and discuss the strong faith and courage that he had to have when he became the supreme minister of the Nation of Islam, and what decisions he had to make in order to move forward. You know, in our daily prayers, we recite Al-Fatiha, the opening surah or chapter of the Holy Quran. And the 5th through the 7th ayats or verses, we say, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdina siratal mustaqim siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. It is you, Allah, we worship, and you we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those you have bestowed your favor. And I'll repeat that. It is you, Allah, we worship, and you we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those you have bestowed your favor. Surely Warith Deen Muhammad was guided to the straight path, the path of the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you go back to 1975, I know the brother mentioned even in the early 50s, the Nation of Islam had its beliefs. And I'm just going to talk about some of the beliefs that were ingrained in the mindset of the followers at that time. They were told that Elijah Muhammad was a prophet, that God came to him as Fard Muhammad, and the creation of the white race by Yaqub was an experiment, and in fact, that all whites were the devil. Those were strong beliefs among the Nation of Islam, taught as part of the religion for years. So to go against the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, you would be ostracized from the Nation of Islam, and it could be detrimental to your well-being. So imagine the faith and the courage that Warith Deen had to have when he was proclaimed to be the supreme minister of the Nation of Islam after his father's death. How would he go about dispelling these teachings? Well, Warith Deen Muhammad went to the straight path. He denounced those stories as false. His father was not a prophet, nor was Fard Muhammad God. He was just a man. And the white man was not the devil. In fact, there were many whites that were actually Muslim. Oh, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path of those you have bestowed your favor. This is the path that Warith Deen Muhammad took. And so the process began. And look at us today. We're here, many converts and followers, as a result of this one man's faith and decision to follow the Sunnah. Just think about all those blessings from that decision that he's been bestowed on him. We know that all members did not accept that decision, but we are thankful for those who did as they carried the message forward. And we all know that it is Allah who guides, and we are here by his favor and guidance, but we do acknowledge the work of his servants. Worth Deen Muhammad was truly a servant of Allah. For me personally, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I was very familiar with the Nation of Islam. But at the time that Worth Deen Muhammad became the supreme minister, I was actually out of the country. I was in Tanzania working as an engineer there. But it made the newspapers, even over there. One of the brothers came up to me, did you hear about Worth Deen Muhammad? The Black Americans are going to accept the Sunnah. And they were excited. So that news traveled all over the world. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that his decision to follow the Sunnah did not just affect the black Muslims in this country, but also the immigrant Muslims. Because at that time, they were sort of in the closet, so to speak. Now, I just say this from my own observations, because in Detroit, I was trying to study Islam before I went over to Africa in order to better prepare myself for the cultures of it. And, you know, we would meet in a few homes. It was sort of secretive, like there were a lot of Mid-Eastern stores, but you really didn't make a connection between those stores and Islam. But after I was gone for 2.5 years, and when I came back, man, Detroit had an Islamic renaissance. There were mosques, masjids being built, even in the places where, like Dearborn, Michigan, where they didn't even want blacks to live. So there were more mosques being built. It was more open. The Mid-Eastern stores, I mean, when you went into them, you knew that they were definitely Islamic stores at that time. So it was like a green light was given. And like I said, that's my own personal observation. And today, you know, we see Muslim communities all over the country. We're here following the Quran and the Sunnah and being thankful to Allah for being here as his servants and appreciating those who came before us, like Worth Deen Muhammad, with that strong faith and courage to step into that straight path, the path of those Allah has bestowed his favor. Assalamu alaikum. I have some Muhammad Ali stories. So I actually met Muhammad Ali at the University of Michigan when he was on his speaking tours, when they had taken his title away. And he gave a speech, and some of the fraternity brothers said, hey, we're going to be meeting Muhammad Ali afterwards. And they invited me to come and join. So I met him then. And then I met him again at the Islamic Center on Vermont. And I went up to him and I said, you probably don't remember me, but you know, I met you at the University of Michigan. And he straight away went to the year. He said, yeah, that was back in 1968. So his memory was good. And I happened to be over in, I was not in Congo, but right next to it during the Rumble in the Jungle. And they had all the drive-in theaters. They were showing that fantastic fight. So, Ali Bombardier, as they say.
I got ahead of myself. This is from Muhammad Ali. I'll tell you how I'd like to be remembered. This is from Ali himself. As a black man who won the heavyweight title and who was humorous and who treated everyone right. As a man who never looked down on those who looked up to him and who helped as many of his people as he could, financially and also in their fight for freedom, justice, and equality. As a man who wouldn't hurt his people's dignity by doing something that would embarrass them. As a man who tried to unite his people through the faith of Islam. If that's asking too much, then I guess I'd settle for being remembered only as a great boxer who became a preacher and a champion of his people. And I wouldn't even mind it if folks forgot how pretty I was. Muhammad Ali.
We want to thank all these gentlemen for giving you their historical perspectives on the great leaders that they've talked about today. You know, one thing that all of these leaders have done is enlighten the rest of us. So the question is, how do we enlighten other people? See, that's on the top side of the number line. How to each one of us enlighten other people. We have 99 attributes that we can carry on. Are you gracious with other people? Are you merciful with other people? Or are you all-knowing with other people? We must pass on. When we work with ministers in the community, I tell them about the PPP. They say, well, what's the PPP? Patience, perseverance, and prayer. Their remark is, prayer comes first. I said, well, what do you have to have if you're going to do prayer? You got to have patience first. And that's what the Quran teaches us. Thank these gentlemen. Give them a hand. Thank you very much. The next moderator coming up is Murad Rahman. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Rahman Rahim. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you very briefly about another very great and courageous historian, and perhaps the reason we're here today in the wake of Black History Month. We're here to celebrate our leaders and our great individuals who have contributed to the history of African Americans and Black people here in America. And the one that we're going to talk about today, most of all, for just a very few moments of your time, is Carter G. Woolson. Carter G. Woolson was an individual who has not received much notoriety, so we want to try and give you a few moments of his history, what he's all about, and what he represented. Education is the number one thing that Dr. Carter G. Woolson represented. He was born in 1875. He was the son of slaves, former slaves, and he was self-educated. He could not read, his father could not read or write. His mother was taught by a white woman how to read. He didn't go to school until he was 19 years old, went to high school when he was 19, and he taught himself how to read, how to write, how to do arithmetic. He went through a 4-year curriculum at the high school there at 19, and he finished 4 years in 2 years period of time. He went on, and in 1875, in 1875, he graduated from Berea College. He graduated from Berea College, and he went on to receive a doctor's degree in history at the University of Chicago, and most formidably, he received a PhD from Harvard. And he was the only person in the history of the United States of America to receive a doctor's degree from parents who were former slaves. Nobody else has done that. So that stands out in his history. His goal was to end off racism between Black people and white people, and he wanted to highlight the role of Black history as it has never been told. The way it's being done now, where they're trying to eliminate real knowledge of what Black people have done or lie and distort and change it so that the truth never really comes out. So by 1926, he promoted the first event which came to be known as Negro History Week. Some of you youngsters don't know anything about the word Negro. Now, that which he founded in 1926, Negro History Week, has now become what we now celebrate as Black History Month. In every year since 1976, every president has awarded and celebrated Black History Month, with one exception. They call him 44. 44 is the only president we know of that did not celebrate Black History Month. Finally, he's been awarded a number of awards and attributes. He's been awarded the Memorial Statute in Virginia in 1995. He also has a monument in his home state, and he received a stamp in his name, Dr. Carter G. Wilson. So we'd like for you to pay close attention and please honor and respect the Honorable Carter G. Wilson. Thank you very much. May Allah bless you all. Thank you. I don't know who's next, but it's not me.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, alhamdulillah, I was blessed to attend Tuskegee University. At the time, it was called Tuskegee Institute. I graduated in 1973. Booker T. Washington was born a slave. It's a famous biography, Up From Slavery, and it tells of how he got away from slavery and was educated, and then he was living in Hampton. He was born in Virginia, and the situation happened in Alabama where they were going to open up a school for Blacks, and he was asked to go there to do this fundamental beginning. That's how he ended up going to Tuskegee and establishing the institute there. He was really renowned for going out and soliciting support and funds from philanthropists throughout the country that funded the growth and the building of Tuskegee. And his, a lot of times people talk about the debate between he and W.B. Du Bois on, Du Bois was among those who established with the founders of the NAACP. And the NAACP in the initial days really was about the upper 10%, what they talked about, the top 10% of Black people. And Booker T was working with, again, laborers and farmers. Tuskegee was an industrial school. Many of the buildings were built by the students themselves. And so people misunderstood that he was not against, those going into just the academic aspects of education, but really the total realm of what education could be. And this is why he had this famous statement of cast down your buckets where you are. Because we have to remember at the latter part of the 1800s, going into the 1900s, the migration from the South to the North was beginning to happen. And Booker T was saying, cast down your bucket where you are. You know, begin where you are. And to, just like with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that, you know, came later, Tuskegee was about building for ourselves, doing for ourselves. So it was telling the former slaves that they could be able to become industrial, learn how to be able to build, learn how to be able to cook, learn how to be able to sew, learn how to be, you know, industrious, which meant also being businessmen, because some of the first Chamber of Commerces that was established in this country was by Black people. And Booker T. Washington was a part of organizing a lot of those Blacks across the nation as farmers, as businessmen, as businesswomen, and how to be organized and how to be able to do things in a segregated reality. And, you know, that was, I think, one of the strengths was that Black people were able, because when you think about it, because of the disenfranchisement and us having our own establishments, then we needed to be skilled. And we already, you know, when you think about the slaves, I mean, they were skilled laborers because they did all of the building and things of that nature. And so he was saying we can still do this and become entrepreneurial. After I graduated, I worked at the university for several years in the Department of Media. And Booker T, there was over 100 million acres of land that Blacks had in 1900 that was lost by 1972. Vast majorities of it had been lost. But to think about that many Blacks in Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Louisiana, they owned the land. And he was teaching them, again, how to be able to take that land and to produce from that land and to be prosperous from that land. And you know, this is the continued legacy of Tuskegee. It has now one of the Aero industrial universities, you know, or courses that it teaches aero engineering, as well as engineering, nursing. It has one of the top schools in the animal science that it continues to have to this day, and in veterinary medicine. Many Africans and South Americans who couldn't go to white universities came to Tuskegee to become veterinarians, and it, to this day, still is among the top veterinary schools in the United States. So that legacy continues, and along with many of the other Black schools, but Booker T's, I think his coming out of the slave experience and becoming so renowned for, you know, being a voice for, you know, Black people. And I remember as a young person, a child, I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana, and many of the seamstresses who had their own, you know, tailor shops, women that made hats and things, I mean, they were graduates of Tuskegee. And again, you know, it was inspirational, and I was very, you know, inspired. And in fact, as a student at Tuskegee, they brought in people like Adam Clayton Powell to speak to us as freshmen, Julian Bond that came and inspired us. And though most of my friends, you know, that graduated, they went to, you know, Indiana University or Purdue or other schools in the North, and their aspirations were just to become successful and businessmen. But at Tuskegee, as well as at other historical Black colleges, they taught you that you were not there for yourself, that you were there for your people, and that your responsibility was to give back. And though I didn't go to college with that in my mind initially, I was going to play football and just, you know, sports. And but you learned, everybody learned that no, you're here as an empowerment, you know, for your people, and you must give something back. And that resonates with me to this day, and it resonates with all of those that have graduated, you know, from historical Black colleges, that they know that they have a responsibility to take what they've been gifted with to give back in some way to the community. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
We're more than lucky. We're more than lucky. This is not luck. This is God driven for us to be where we're at and to have survived and met the challenge. Our forefathers, woo, they were some tough folks. They were some tough folks. Fannie Lou Hamer, one of our stairs, says nobody's free until everybody's free. You see this common thread amongst the people whose shoulders we stand on. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Every man and woman is born into the world to do something unique and something distinctive. And if he or she does not do it, it will never be done. That's Benjamin Mays. Now, John Lewis was a little bit different, you know. He was elected president of SNCC, but then the hard drivers came in. The new young minds came in, like Stokely Carmichael and et cetera. And they voted him out because the youngins are the ones that forged forward, just as Imam W. Muhammad forged forward from his father. Oh yeah, I know our kids, they didn't, like, how we did things a certain way. But we have to listen to their mind because they grow from what we've given them and what we've put into them. Those of you who have children know what I'm talking about. Like Malcolm, don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. And that's so much, as education is not a preparation for life, education is life itself. As our teacher said, we learn from the womb to the tomb. The roots of our education are bitter, but the fruit is so sweet. Imam Haroum Abdullah used to always talk about the peaches and how all the peaches don't get ripe at the same time. Now we take that one step further. There's a reason God don't let all the peaches get ripe at the same time. Why is that? Somebody tell me, why aren't all the peaches ripe at the same time? Thank God for that. We can't eat them all at once. That's by design. There's no way. All the peaches don't get ripe at the same time. So when you go out in the community and you're talking to people, understand that everybody's brain doesn't pick it up and have the same perspective as yours. So we have to be what? We have to be patient. We have to be patient with each other. Oh, that's hard. That's hard. Because it's my way or no way? No, it don't work like that. We have to be patient with each other. We have to be kind with each other. All these people we talk about in history, whose shoulders we stand on, from those in our present to those who came before us. We learn from everyone. We learn from everyone because none of the seeds are the same. And all this seasoning that it takes to make the soup just the way I like it. God made us so that our seasoning and every bit of our differences come together. That's the key, how to come together and get something accomplished. But we have to understand that the clove, the cinnamon, all them little pieces of seasoning, which is each one of us, take us to the next step. Now we have to learn how to use it. And that's what Imam W.D. Muhammad spent a lot of time educating us on how to use it. I'll give one or two more quotes. First lady of the struggle was supposed to be Mary Bethune. Now, she went down there and opened up a college in Florida amongst a whole lot of weeds she had to fight. But there's something about this enslaved people, doggone it, it's something special. It's something special enslaved people had to endure those years. Oh, you were talking about Tuskegee. I would have liked to heard about that airport. Where is he at? That airport, you know, there's an airport right there as you pull into Tuskegee, you know. We went down there one summer to drive through it. I asked the guard, I said, can we just drive around? He said, come on through and drive around. You know, it's a beautiful university. And the last president, Dr. Jenkins, lived here in Long Beach. You know, he was quite a man. He was an interim president, and he was a veterinarian. And interesting brother. He's passed away now. But he gave $5,000 to the 100 black men. He felt to start our mentoring program. So, you know, great people. And I just got a call this morning, a lady to our early childhood development program. She's going to donate $60,000. She called our executive director this morning. She was so excited, you know, 60. Is that enough? Was her reply. Her name is Evelyn Knight. She doesn't want anybody to know she donated that kind of money. It's a blessing. Her and I traveled to Africa together. Where would we go? Congo, Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, Zimbabwe. Where else we go? South Africa. And it's amazing. You know, everyone needs to make that trip. Make that trip to Africa. It's, you know, I always remember what's the comedian's name that said when he got back? Richard Pryor. He said, there ain't none of you know what over there, you know, but he had to go all the way over there to find out, to get woke up, to get educated to himself what was going on in the world. And world travel is good. And Brother Mukadeen has traveled, and all of us should get out of the pocket so we can find out what's going on, how other people live. It's so opening and so much wisdom out there. And even if you go to Paris and London and find out buildings, and you go to Africa and there's buildings that have been there thousands of years, to thank God we didn't stick to Plymouth Rock and expand it from Plymouth Rock. You know, I tell all my African-American friends, I say, you know, just be glad you were able to slip off of Plymouth Rock, because if we stayed there, we'd really be in a fix. So the next panel coming up is L.C. Shabazz.
Assalamu alaikum. Let's give a hand to Brother Ahmed Safir, the Lion of Allah. Well, I see so many familiar faces here. It really brings a smile to my face. Murad Rahman, I go back a long ways. His son and my son are besties. I see Faida Amin. We met when we were about 15 years old at Jamia Junior High School. See Imam Abdul Karim Hassan. I remember the day I was hired for Muhammad Speaks, to write for Muhammad Speaks. I was in the back seat of your car. We were riding around Los Angeles with the editor of Muhammad Speaks newspaper, Askia Muhammad, whom I think was the best editor the paper ever had. And Brother Askia was in the riding shotgun. And he said, you know, brother, you've been writing freelance for about a year or two. I think we'll hire you for the newspaper. And I said, well, how much you paying? And he told me how much he was paying. And I said, well, the last paper I worked for, I was making more than that. So what's up? And Imam Hassan was driving. I thought we were going to wreck because he was looking at me. He was looking at me in the rearview mirror doing like this. And brother, I can't tell you how many times that finger has come up in my mind when I wanted to do something I shouldn't be doing. I'd see that finger. Don't do that. Don't say that. And the brother said, look, man, you writing for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you better take what they offer you. And so I did. And I told you the story about playing Little League at Manchester Park. And I didn't tell you what happened to the hot dog. When we came back to the hot dog, there were worms in the hot dog. And I never ate pork from that day. I was about 15 years old. I also see Mahdi and Sabrine Ali from the old 5-4 in the house. 5-4. For those of you who don't know, I'm not talking about 5-4 ballroom. I'm talking about the Compton Temple. I do go by L.C. Shabazz, and I do go by Lawrence Fortenberry. Some of you might know me by that. These are the last days of Black History Month, a month in which we honor our ancestors, sheroes and our heroes. We preserve their achievements, and we illuminate untold stories of African-American tragedy and triumph. But we know that Black history is living history, and it lasts from January 1st to December 31st. So I thank Sister Chandra. She sent me a text to be here, and she said, go rent a tux. And I was like, rent a tux? What am I going to rent a tux for? And the bougie side of me came out, and I said, well, Sister Chandra, darling, I already own a tuxedo. So I can save y'all a little money and wear my own tuxedo. And although we were talking on a cell phone, I could see her eyes roll at the back of her head. And I could see and imagine her face, aren't you special? And so I said, when we hung up, or when I finished reading the text, I said, I better try on this tuxedo. So I went in the closet, and I'm trying, this is about as far as I could get. I was like, I better run down here to Friar Tuck with the quickness and get me a tuxedo. I thank the organizers of this event, nurturing next generation leaders on the shoulders of ancestors who established quality schools for the disenfranchised. I know we're living in interesting times. There was a Chinese curse, and the curse went, may you live in interesting times. We're living in interesting times, and this may be the last days of Black History Month. The Florida Department of Education canceled an AP African American Studies class, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis called it indoctrination. So will Black History Month be next? You know, this masjid means a lot to me. My family lived right on 20th Street. And the West 20th Street is at the light between Cerritos and Lemon. And my mom would take my little brothers and my little sister, she'd walk them up to California, which is now Martin Luther King, to the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And I would sneak around here, where I got to meet Brother Haroon. He was one of my early mentors. I have the privilege of bringing our next speaker up. She is a fellow journalist. She once sat on the editor's desk for the Los Angeles Times and the Herald Examiner. She is the daughter of Majid Muhammad, former general manager of the Nation of Islam. So with a warm welcome and applause, will you please welcome Dr. Winona Majid Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't know if you heard me, but what did I say? Say it right? People who've known me for a long time know what that means, right? Thank you so much for allowing me to come here and be with this auspicious group. I enjoy so much seeing this gathering of people here. Thank you, Dr. Salam, and her trusty assistant, Sister Faida, who is, I know she's somewhere working, right? Of course, she always is. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And assalamu alaikum. Sister has asked me to talk about the University of Islam. I changed up a little bit. She doesn't mind, okay, because I want to talk about knowledge. And some of the people, many of the people in our community who have contributed to Islamic knowledge, the development of Islamic knowledge in the Los Angeles area. Many of them are in this room right now. I think of them as a cabal, a group of people who have come together, worked together, strategized together, and yes, worked at the University of Islam, worked to develop Sister Clara Muhammad School. Doesn't matter what you call this institution of knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the mission of working through. He gave the prophets, all the prophets, mission. The mission was to disseminate knowledge to the people, teach the people how to be human. This cabal, among these individuals, some of whom I said are in this room, we look at these prophets, especially our last prophet, Muhammad, as our examples. They're our examples. And our biggest example is, number one, to believe in Allah, la ilaha illallah. Another example is to teach the people, understand the people, show ourselves as being human with the people, and that's what Prophet Muhammad did, right? That's what all the prophets did, right? They were human beings, men and women like ourselves, right? Because it wasn't just men who were the progenitors of knowledge. There were women scholars in the history of El-Islam also. There are women scholars, those who taught and studied and tried to understand what it was that Allah was trying to teach us as human beings. There were men as well as women, women as well as men, and we need to remember that. So I've been tasked with, I've only been given, I was told that I would only have 5 minutes to talk. Give me a microphone and a lectern, and I can't just restrict myself to 5 minutes. I've already been talking 4 or 5 minutes, right? Thank you. So I've been tasked with, in 5 minutes, to introduce some of the pioneers in Islamic education in the Los Angeles area and reminding us of the work that they've done, the work that they've invested while seeing to the well-being and the longevity of our community. The Arabic word for knowledge is ilm. And that is what these pioneers have tried to show us how to infuse ourselves with this knowledge, infuse ourselves with the knowledge that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, highly glorified and praises He, only He could have given us, right? He created us. He knows what our failings are, what our shortcomings are. So He's given us a schedule, a curriculum that we have needed to pay attention to. And we've looked to our prophets back through from the beginning of our creation. And we've looked to our Holy Quran, where we find the lessons that have kept all of the knowledge from all of the prophets. That's where that knowledge is that helps us to understand what it means to be human, what it means to be Muslim, what it means to be brothers and sisters, what it means to be a community, what it means to be an ummah, right? So those pioneers that I want to tell you a little bit about, I just want to talk about what their job was, what their jobs were. Their job was to establish the fact of the Muslim schools, whether they were weekend schools or Saturday schools or Sunday schools or full-time institutions, whether you called them University of Islam, whether you call them Sister Clara Muhammad School, or some contemporary iteration like the Islah Academy or the Center for Advanced Learning, whether these institutions supported the families, supported the children, supported the communities, or whether the communities supported them. Okay, it was an interaction, an interrelationship between the communities and the schools. And these people who were in this room, some of them were in this room, unfortunately, there were many we've seen in the last few days who are no longer with us. And it's a sad thing, but I want to make sure that we can appreciate those who are still with us. But their jobs ultimately included following through from the work of previous generations, those that our panelists have talked about in history. This being Black History Month, we've talked a lot about the history. But they needed to, and they did follow through on the work of the previous generations who laid the groundwork of establishing the vision and the consciousness that education is important to our well-being and to our longevity. That back to the schools and the consciousness that that education and knowledge, ilm, is important to our longevity, is important to our growth and development as human beings, to our growth and development as a community, as our growth and development as brothers and sisters who love and respect each other. But what is a point? You know, Quran talks about it all the time. Okay, Quran talks about it all the time. You know, talks about knowledge. We have to get it. We have to have some wisdom along with it, right? But it's critical. These schools were the transmission of this knowledge that helps us that melds us together as a community, that supports the individual growth and development of each and every one of us. The special knowledge that only Allah can give us, but also we've got that Quran, as I've said, the Holy Quran, that gives us the knowledge of Allah, but how to manipulate, how to navigate, how to use the knowledge that Allah has given us to navigate this dunya, how to use the knowledge to navigate the secular society that has had such a great influence on us and our children. Because it's our children that we really need to focus on, right? We need to focus on our kids. I think if we look around this room right now, we realize that the structure of the Ummah has changed. I'm not the oldest person in the room, but I'm not the youngest person in the room either. Think about home. Think about your masjid that you attend all the time. Where are our kids? Where are our children? Where are our youth? Is it something that we did or something that we didn't do that we don't necessarily see as many of our children next to us when we go to Jummah prayer, when we go to the classes, when we try to learn some Arabic a little bit here and there, when we try to be Muslim? Are our kids along with us, all of them? You know, we can understand it if we're missing, you know, one out of 4 maybe, you know. But how many really do we have? How do we feel? How do you feel about where your kids are? How do you feel about your grandchildren? I know some of us got grandchildren and great-grandchildren, right? On a weekend, where do they go? What are they doing? What are they doing? The ultimate question here is, have we made the most of the knowledge, so much of it that was given to us, that was handed down to us, that was transmitted to us through these schools? Have we made the best use of that knowledge that was given to us, that was transmitted to us? Have we made the most of it? Have we created little Winonas or Chandras or Ahmads, Murads? Do we have that? When we came into Islam, almost all of us when we came into the knowledge that there was something besides what we saw in the streets, when we saw that there was something, when we found out that there was something else, most of us became committed. We were committed. Weren't we committed? We were committed. Can we say that our children are now have that? Do we still, our children have that same kind of commitment? We've had so many prophets, teachers, more teachers, social activists who've given us, who've transmitted to us, who've handed down to us so much. What have we done with it? Have we been able to separate the facts of life from illusion? Oh yes, I'm seeing some kids coming now. Makes me feel great. You know, playing with the trucks and bikes over there. It made me feel great. Whether the temple or the mosque or the masjid supported the students and their families, the schools supported the masjids. That's not important. What's important is what we've done with what we've had. These pioneers, as I said before, they weren't interested in transmitting just any old knowledge. Their job, the job that was their calling, what Allah has given to us, is a knowledge of being human and being Muslim, from the cradle to the grave. This cabal, it was interested in setting in stone the values that come from the teachers, that come from the teachings found in the Holy Quran. It's a book that guides us in how to implement everyday thinking and everyday living within the framework of the revelation from Almighty God and in the example of Prophet Muhammad. The Quran transmits knowledge out of the facts of the creation and puts forth the lessons we need to know in order to be successful. So we have the tools. We have the tools. Our cabal has put emphasis on the transmission of that knowledge, has put emphasis on the knowledge itself. They've emphasized teaching and learning. They've tried to do what Quran said. Do this. Understand this. It's best for you if you but knew. Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom, and that has been infused in community life, right? It's better for you if you had knowledge about a thing. Better if you but knew. Will you not use your reason? It would be better for you if you did. We have in our midst now imams whose interest in transmitting the knowledge, the secular knowledge, the religious knowledge, the knowledge of the schoolhouse, as well as the knowledge of the prayer house. See it every time you come off the freeway in South Los Angeles now. You see that huge spire. It is so beautiful. And it represents the growth of knowledge in Los Angeles. Imam Hassan has been an example for us of someone who has been able to fuse the different kinds of knowledge, the different knowledges that we've had as African American Muslims. and you see the representation of the work that not just he, but everyone he has touched, everyone who sat under his teaching and under him being under the teaching of his teachers, Imam Wafdi Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad too, right? He has sat under those teachings and we've all learned from it. So we give thanks to Allah. The directors of the schools, they oversaw the everyday functioning of the schools, and together with the imams, they were responsible for teaching the teachers, for coordinating the teachers, coordinating the business of the schools, and all of that on top of the formal education they received in today's world that qualifies them to teach. They have to remind teachers and staff that their work is important and that their work is appreciated. They can forget that. They can forget how much they really are appreciated with all the distractions and all the stuff that goes on in the world and that goes on among their kids, their students that come in front of them. What do they see? They see the world. They see the world. Do they see the religious knowledge as well? Do they see all of that? They see only the world, twerking and turning on your head and calling people out of their name, you know, the habits. They see all of that, but do they see what we need to teach our kids? What has made us committed? Do we see what has made us committed? The imams and the directors, they oversee the disciplinary matters and the matters of behavior and comportment, but they also keep the doors open. They strategize how to keep the doors open, how to pay for. In this world, you gotta have a little bit of that, right? In order to pay the teachers, pay the principals, you pay to keep the lights on, the gas on. You gotta have a little bit of this. You have to do the fundraising in order to make sure that everything stays on. The clerical, I'm going to wrap this up a little bit. Oh, I want to thank the brothers who talked about women and the women's roles in developing the society. I want to talk about those people. I mean, I don't think that we've analyzed why the structure of the community has changed. But Imam Wafdi Muhammad pointed us to an ilm, a Quranic knowledge, a holy knowledge that has caused us to disperse our knowledge through all the society, American society. You may mourn that the 4,000 or 4 million people that you expected to see in the masjid, you know, on a particular day, maybe they're not there. Don't mourn that. Don't mourn. Be grateful for the fact that those of us who do have this knowledge have spread out in the society and have carried this knowledge with us and have transmitted this knowledge to other people in the American society. They would never have known anything about al-Islam if we hadn't spread it, if we had stayed in one little core group, one little cabal, one little core group all to ourselves and kept the knowledge in ourselves. then even though we see, I'm going to say that, crap that's going on out there, there are people who know what's right. They know in their hearts what's right and what's wrong. And when they see us, they remember, dhikr, right? They remember what is right and what is wrong, you know, and they may not say anything to you, but when it's just them and God, when it's just them and God, they think real closely about what it is that they're doing. And it may not look like it now, but I believe that Allah is God and knows what he's doing. So even though it may be a bunch of stuff out there that is wrong, that is corrupt, that's crazy, that we have a final goal that Allah is moving us toward. And we just have to stand firm. We have to stand firm. We have to use the knowledge that was given to us. Some of those people who are they're luminaries. What is the word lumen? It's light, okay? It's light. And these people have, in our community, have spread the light. They've used the schools to transmit the light, right? Imam A.K. Hassan. Director Nada Ali, radiallahu anhu. Director Robert 4X. These are the names that were given to me, radiallahu. Directress Halima Mu'min, radiallahu anha. Principal Amira Abdul Majid. I know my 5 minutes, I'm almost done. Dr. Anyan Palmer, Dr. Zakiya Muhammad. Leader Joan Sabrif Bakir. Sharon Bakir. Mariam Ali, Frank J. Mary Shabazz. Sister Artis Alim. She held it down. She held it down for a lot of years, didn't she? She held it down. Sisters Karima and Zahira Muhammad. Anna Lee, Kareem Bilal. We need to remember what these folks have done with us and for us. I can't end this, even though you say, what about 5 minutes left? Without talking about my father, Arthur Majid Muhammad. Not everybody in this room knows him. A lot of people do, or knew him. He was a fixture in this community as an imam, as in teacher, leader, educator in the Islamic community since the late 1960s, both here and in Los Angeles and in Chicago. As a scientist, he was one of those who helped to follow up on the consciousness of Quranic knowledge, as well as secular knowledge, for the benefit of the Muslim community. That's what he was always about. He started and taught in the first Muslim school that Santa Barbara had. He was the national business manager for Elijah Muhammad. He supported the University of Islam in Los Angeles. He supported the University of Islam nationally as one of his projects as business manager. And he was a leader and educator in the University of Islam itself. He was always available to support the educational activities in Los Angeles. May Allah forgive him his sins, raise him to the highest ranks of Allah's paradise. He and my mother, who also returned to Allah recently, were among this cabal of transmitters of knowledge. And I know that they were very much loved in this community, in this ummah. I was one of those who disappeared from the community for a while because I was out there. I was in the newspaper. Yes. Even went to a different state, you know. But I was doing what the imam told me to do. I was doing what he told me to do, which was to spread Allah's light. That's what I thought I was doing. Learned a lot, did a lot, you know, came back home to my community in order to continue to do a lot, if I possibly could. I'm the only one who doesn't have a Muhammad Ali story. I have a sort of story, though. Okay. I and my first husband used to do what you recommend, which is to travel, right? So when we traveled, especially to places like in the Caribbean, where there were other Black people, Caribbean, like Indonesia, Malaysia, Mexico, places like that where there were Black people. You know, you get off we travel mostly by cruises, right? Very luxurious. Walk off the ship, and there'll be lots of Black people, brown people, yellow people. And we would be the only African Americans, you know, in that group. And so what do we hear? Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali. That would be the chant, you know, and they know good and well that I'm not Muhammad Ali, and he wasn't Muhammad Ali. But that's my Muhammad Ali story. Thank you all. I'm sorry? No, it's on.
The food is here, and we're gonna continue with speakers. We have people who've come all the way here from Arizona, and Imam A.K. Hassan will share with us our brother Nadar Ali, the director of the schools here on the West Coast. What Sister Winona, Dr. Winona was speaking about was, you know, the imams and their contribution. We have a few, and Brother Kenneth do want to talk. We're gonna let AK first. When we asked, who you want to represent? He said, I want to represent Brother Malik. Okay, you can represent Brother Malik and talk about your experience. But we have Imam Ayman. May Allah be pleased with all of them and forgive them of their shortcomings. He was about Craig and teaching about one God. Sister Mariam Shabazz, I was enlightened that she was a great financial supporter of the schools and the masjids. So we can't exist without some funds. And we know she was around like forever, a business lady, but we wanted to honor her. And that's a picture next to her of Imam Majid, Arthur Abdul Majid Muhammad, and his wife, Catherine, who was, part of this community and left the legacy. And of course, again, Imam A. Nuri Salam, who established the school in Memphis, but also left that spirit with Brother Malik and Brother Abdul Matt Ewan. And I saw those brothers rise to the occasion of leading a school. They may not have had all the credentials, but trust me, in observing them, they did a fantastic job. Imam A.K. Hassan, we done waited late. You were supposed to go first. You don't have the imam waiting all day, but we thank you for coming down. Can you just share something about Nadar Ali and his leadership in terms of education? Okay.
Well, Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The program has been very interesting. I've learned a lot, especially how people feel about the people that they spoke about. Very interesting conversation, very interesting message. And listening to Sister Muhammad speak about education. The thing that grabbed me on that during that conversation was when she mentioned the business of education. People don't talk about that. Talk about knowledge, they talk about wisdom, talk about understanding. But when you have experience in education, like Brother Murad over here, when you have experience in education, you have to talk about the business of education too. You don't have education if you don't have business. Your business is what supports education. I'm gonna get around to Brother Ali in a minute. Number one, a lot of, when you mention a lot of names, you leave out a lot of names too. Very important names that were instrumental in bringing education to people. And when we talk about Los Angeles, you can't speak about education in this particular area and leave out John Shabazz. You can't leave out Herman Rasul. You can't leave out Bashir Muhammad. These are all former ministers of Temple number 27. John Shabazz was the first one. Then we have Herman Rasul. Then we had Bashir Muhammad. Now, they have their own particular issues with Chicago. And that's why they didn't remain in the position until now. John Shabazz was sent to Atlanta. He wasn't dismissed, he was sent to Atlanta. Herman Rasul was already an educator in the LA Unified School District. So he went back to his position at the LA Unified School District. And Bashir Muhammad, he went to Texas, San Antonio, Texas. But all of these brothers had part in the growth and development of education in this particular area, because they represented the business of education. The former principals of the school system represented teaching the message, the knowledge of education that is required, that is necessary for education. But these particular brothers had to deal with the business of education, because it costs money to educate people. It costs money to educate human beings. It costs money, lots of money. So we talk about the education part, but we don't talk about the business part. Nana Ali, he was quite an individual. Nana Ali was blessed with having knowledge of education. He was an educator himself. Matter of fact, he was also a football player in college. Nana Ali was a person that you just can't duplicate. That is a person that has to be created, has to be made. He was that kind of person. He had an experience, and that experience, see, when you say you experience, you're also talking about experiment. Experiment. But knowledge is nothing but experiencing and experiments. You don't acquire knowledge just by sitting down reading a book. You acquire knowledge by experiencing what you read in the book. Then that's the knowledge. The rest of it is just theory. You think it's supposed to go this way, and you think it's supposed to go that way. That's what you learn in school, what you think it's supposed to do. But when you get out there in the world, what you think something is supposed to do, don't necessarily do it. Experience in doing that thing teaches you what the knowledge is, the real knowledge is, the knowledge of knowing. First of all, it's just theory. Then your theory has to grow and develop, and you put it to work out there in the world to find out if it will work. Sometimes you have knowledge that won't work. But that's knowledge, all right, but it won't work because you don't have experience. You need that experience too. Experience go along with it. Experience teach you a lot that you should know. Now, Nana Ali, he had knowledge acquired from experience. And he put that to work on both fields. First, he was his father, they had a milk farm. They used to milk cows and sell milk. That's knowledge and experience and business knowledge. That don't come easy. That comes difficult, it's hard. It takes work to do that. Most people think that all you have to do is read a book and then you think you're qualified to do something. No, you're not. You read a book and try to drive a car. First thing will happen to you is you end up in the hospital or end up in the graveyard. You can't read a book and drive a car. You can't read a book and drive a plane. It takes experiments, it takes practice, it takes a lot of things. Your imam there, your imam didn't read a book and became a leader in Islam.
I knew him before you did. I knew him 40 years ago, longer than that. When he was, and I met him on the way. That's experience. That's knowledge. And he was working in the field all the time, acquiring more knowledge. Knowledge that qualifies him to be a preacher or a teacher in what he has chosen to be. Nod Ali was like that. You know, Nod Ali came into the community 10 years after I did. I came in 56. When Nod Ali came into the temple, into the temple for the first time, I'd been in there 10 years. But what the difference between Nada was on the West Coast, I was on the East Coast. Now, Nada, when he came to Los Angeles, he came to Los Angeles. I was in Connecticut. I was on the East Coast when he came into Los Angeles the first time. That's when the real educational system began. When Nada Ali came when he was sent here to Los Angeles by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he began right away to write books and things about education. And those books and things got back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought him to Chicago for a minute, then sent him back to LA, and took him out of LA and sent him into the Bay Area, and then finally took him out of the Bay Area and brought him to Chicago. But he started the system here. When he started the system here, he left scholars here to teach education. And one of them was Brother Robert. Brother Robert was a scientist. He was a chemist. He was a scientist. And when I came here in 1971, Brother Robert was the principal of the school. And he was a trusted one, and he was a respected one by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who himself was in charge of all of the schools. Then he had a son. His son got killed. His oldest son got shot in Watts. One by a gang member killed him. He couldn't handle that. So he and his wife, who helped him greatly, Sister Alice, they left and they went to Jacksonville, I think Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. I saw him there once when I was traveling there. But anyway, not only set up the structure for the school here in Los Angeles, and when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called him to Chicago, he set up the structure for business in Chicago. So he was a business major and also an educational major. And in fact, the man was so good, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad sent him to Peru to act as a businessman. Now he's an educator. The man would come out of a school in Fresno teaching children, teaching students. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad took him out of there and brought him to Chicago and taught him how to handle business proposition down in Peru. Sent him to Peru to make a deal with the government in Peru to sell us, to catch fish for us on the Pacific Ocean and freeze dry them on the boat and then bring them and then ship them to America so that we can use that as a business to further our economic situation. That economic situation was partly a business of education. The business of education, because teachers had to be taught. Teachers had to earn their fare. You couldn't work teachers for nothing. But the teachers that was hired were hired mostly as wives they already had husbands. And when he hired the teachers, the husband was taking care of the teaching so he could pay them less money. But as time evolved, that didn't work out because sometimes the women was just by themselves and you had to pay them more money. So that increases the idea of creating a fund for the benefit of educating the children, for educating the students. And that worked, and it worked greatly until the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed himself. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed, that brought about a problem because new leadership made it a little difficult because their idea of building a community didn't begin with business being made or created by the temples at that time, but made and created by individuals. And in Los Angeles, the way the education system was set up, it was set up on the basis of tuition. Tuition can't if you're gonna have a private school, tuition, you need more than tuition. Tuition not gonna do it. Our parents have 3, and 4 children. If you have to pay $30 or $40 or $50 a week for those children, that's going to take a lot out of the income of the parents. Parents couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford it when I came here. They couldn't afford it. So Ali gave me an idea of what to do. He said, well, you have to increase the desire on the parents paying for the tuition because our school was on Broadway, 5606 Broadway, as brother mentioned earlier, 5606 Broadway, and it was like a storefront, really, but a huge storefront with a second floor to it. And what happened there was the children were being taught inside the temple and also on the second floor, but the place was too small. So since the place was too small, we needed a larger place. So a brother came up with an idea that what we should do is purchase another building that is large enough to hold them. So he brought the idea of purchasing the building on Central Avenue that was owned by the Elks. It was the Elks Club. It was a 40,000 square foot building on Central Avenue owned by the Elks Club. So we went over there and took a look at it. Rashid and I went over there and took a look at it. We looked at it, and John Abdul Haq, and we found out that place would suit us fine. We had to do a lot of renovation work, but fine. So we made a deal with the Elks Club to purchase the building. To purchase the building was $180,000. That's how much it costs. We raised enough money to put down on it, which was $50,000, and we owed them $130,000. They carried the note. We paid off in 10 years. But in the meantime, we had a place where we could teach our children, and we had 1,000 students. People forget that we had 1,000 students on that location. The brothers, the sisters, the young sisters went to school in the afternoon. The brothers went in the morning. When the brothers get out of school that day, then the sisters came in the afternoon. But it costs money. You couldn't do that without somebody paying out an awful lot of money. And that's where the idea comes from of education. So what happened was the administration here was putting the children out of school because the parents couldn't pay the tuition. So the idea come with a discussion with Nada Ali, said, don't put the parents out of school. Don't put the children out of school because they can't afford education. Put the parents out. Put the parents out the temple. Because it's their responsibility to pay for the children. Children can't pay for education, they don't work. Parents work. So put pressure on the parents, put the parents out. Well, the parents didn't want to be out, So the parents started paying tuition. When the parents started paying tuition, that made the teachers happy because they could take home some money. That made the brothers that were teaching also, made them happy because they could take home some money, and everything went fine for a while. Went great. But Nada Ali was the spirit and the footprint behind that beginning of this educational system in Los Angeles. Never leave him out. Never, because if it wasn't for what he did in the 60s, and if it wasn't for what he did in the 60s, we wouldn't have had an educational system that would be worth anything. So dear people, education is important and you need education, but you also need to figure out how the business of it before you start talking about setting up educational system. Now, what happened with the building that was built there in Los Angeles, people don't understand that. They thought that should be just an all-Muslim school simply because it was brand new. 16 classroom school. Cost $1.5 million to build. And it was ready for education. But what happened? That parents could not pay tuition. And you had to pay taxes on the building. Parents could not pay tuition. What was the solution to the problem? The solution to the problem was to call in all the teachers from LA Unified, which was done. They called in all the teachers from LA Unified to discuss the situation and figure out how they could have a school and invite the neighbors. Without tuition. And the charter school idea was, the charter school came up. And that's what Murad came into being. And Nada's son, Nada Jr., became the first principal of the school because they ran the charter system in Fresno, and they brought the idea down to us. That way you can teach the children, you can educate the children, and the government can pay. The government can pay for it. And that's how that worked. And it's still working today. But that is how it had to be done. The parents then began to set up, which was a good thing, but to set up different temples and different messages in other areas of the city, and they began to produce and set up situations where they could teach their own children. So that idea spread the experience of one place into other places, and other places became prosperous because of that same situation. So you always have to look after how you are going to afford to do a particular thing before you can do it. And if you don't look at the cost of something, you're gonna fall off in your track. And education is one of the most important things that we can do. Everybody knows that your future depends on your education. On your education, the more education you have, the better off your future can be. And Nada Ali was one of the spirited behind those education, along with Sister Muhammad's father. He was also an educator and a scientist too. But their education and their scientists came from mothers and fathers that were non-Muslims who paid the price for their children to get the education. And they, being offsprings of mothers and fathers that paid the price for them to get education, they had to pay the price for their children to get education also. And if you don't have the price to pay, you have to figure out how to get the job done without costing you something that you can't afford. So basically, this is how it worked. And Allah blessed it to work that way, and it worked that way splendidly. And from time to time, Ali became so valuable and so important to the growth of the education system in this area of America that we were able to educate those children until until they graduated from the school and went on into college. And many of those students from those schools and the principals that had, because after Brother Robert left, Sister Halima came, Sister Halima Mukman. She came on board. She was the principal. Her principal started on Central Avenue, and she did a magnificent job. And then they grew out of that situation into another situation, and another sister came to take its place. But in all of those different movements and all of those different changes that was made, there's always a business behind it. And if there's no business behind it, there's not going to be any success behind it. So let us talk about education, but also talk about the business of education. And if you talk about the business of education, we're on the right track to open up a business that will be withstanding and that will drive a lot of children into seeking education and going on to higher education in the school systems. So that is a long story short. That is a very long story short, because we do have a long story to tell on that education system in this area with all the people that's necessary. But let me tell you who holds it together. We had a sister in the system of our education. Her name was Sister Artis. Artis. Sister Artis was the secretary. Let me show you what happened. Sister Artis kept a track on all of the finances that was coming in there for the school. She had cabinets full of non-paying tuition, in cabinet drawers that would reach higher than this ceiling. I'm telling you, when Sister Artis died, Sister Artis told me, may Allah forgive her and accept her in his paradise. Sister Artis told me, she said, Brother Hassan, I said, yes, ma'am. She said, what am I gonna do with all those cabinets that I got still in my house up on the wall? I said, sister, that's the history, that's something in the past. You're not gonna do us any good. It's not gonna do you any good. Not gonna do anybody any good. You're not gonna recoup any expenses from that time, so you might as well put them in the fire and burn them up. Keep the records, but don't keep the expenses. Don't keep the IOUs. Burn the IOUs up, because we'll never experience that. Sister Artis passed from this life knowing that all of those things, when she never destroyed anything, she put everything up. Right now, those things are still available, but her son has them, and he wants to know what to do with them. So we haven't discussed it lately, and I don't want to discuss it, because that's history, and you can't change history. What happened in history happened, and nothing you can do about it. But Allah bless us to come through to where we are right now. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Don't go yet, Brother Imam. On behalf of the African American History and Culture Foundation, we have a tribute here for you. It says, proudly present this Community Service Award to the Honorable Imam A.K. Hassan in recognition of your participation in our Black History Month 2023 production. And it's signed Dr. Chandra Salam, the CEO of the African American History and Culture Foundation, and Imam Abu Ishaq Abdul Hafiz, resident Imam, Masjid Al Sharif, and we present this to you.
Thank you very much. Allahu Akbar. Thank you. Allahu Akbar. Imam Muhammad brought up this discussion. And it seems like the discussion was brought up.
It seems like this discussion should be brought up more often than not. What is ethnicity? Ethnicity. What is your ethnic? So, but is your ethnicity, where is it derived from? Your ethnic, where is your ethnic derived from? It originates from where you from where you first, from where your people first come from. The ethnicity for the French people is French. And they are known when they come to America to live as French Americans, French Americans, and German Americans, Italian Americans, all of it the same. Now, we are people that were brought from the continent of Africa. We don't know what part of Africa, but we know we came from the continent of Africa. We know that. So basically, our ethnicity is African. Africans that was brought to America and had children in America. So by the mere fact that we were born here, we are Americans, but nevertheless, our ethnicity is not American. Our ethnicity is according to our ancestors. And our ancestors came from Africa. So the issue is, why are we being called something that no other people on earth are called? We're being called something by complexion rather than by ethnicity. Black is not an ethnicity. And you can't put all African Americans in a room and call them black. There are no really black, there are no really black people. There's African American people, people who ethnically come from the land of the great continent of Africa, which is, I think they say, the second largest continent on earth. So why are we so content and so happy about calling us something that the slave masters taught us and put on us and still use against us? Why are we still using it? Now, Imam Muhammad said this, he says, that is a disgrace to use a term like that consistently and constantly as educated people when we know the difference between ethnicity and an insult. An insult. And he gave this explanation of his own family. He said his youngest brother is darker than him, and he's not dark. There's his picture right there. There's his father also. There's a picture right there. And he has a daughter that's lighter than him, and it looks like she could be a mulatto. And she is referred to as black. Where? So how did that, what's the configuration here? How did that come? No other people on earth is called, referred to or mentioned by complexion. Only us here in America. For us in America. And we're proud of that. We're proud of something that our former masters gave us, and we won't make any attempt to change it. At least if you can't change it, you can change it with yourself. You should not, we're told, refer to ourselves outside of our ethnicity. Let me tell you something. We had this meeting once in Washington, D.C., with the leaders of a Catholic group, with the leaders of the Catholic group. And the leaders of a Catholic group refer to us as African Americans. And she's from Italy. She's Italian. That's African American. And then wherever we go, I was with Imam Muhammad once in Morocco. I was during the month of Ramadan, in fact. I went out and started taking on the sightsee to take pictures so I can write an article about it. And I ran across this man sitting in the doorway, and he looked at, I looked at him, he said, I said to him, I said, Assalamu alaikum. He said, Wa alaikum assalam. He said, you American? I said, yes, sir. He didn't say, you black. He said, are you American? I said, yes, I am. He said, where you going? I told him I'm going sightseeing. So he said, okay, you can ride with me. Would you mind, I can take you around, show you around. I said, yeah, I'll go with you. He had a moped. One of the early mopeds, because it was small. And he was short and I was tall. So his legs was here and my legs were there. But anyway, he took us on a tour. He kept referring to me according to where I was born. And that was in America. That's America. Never referred to me out of that, and he was darker than me. Then I had this experience with a Pakistani. He introduced me one day to one evening to a crowd. The crowd was mixed. It was mixed with Arabs and Pakistanis and Asians. So he introduced me to the crowd. Imam Muhammad was there and a whole lot of other people were there. He introduced me to the crowd. So when he introduced me as the black Muslims from America, and this was in America. Matter of fact, this was in Orange County. So when I got up to speak, I said to this Pakistani that introduced me, I said, now, and I said to the crowd, really, I said, now, I'm lighter than this he is. This was a Pakistani that was very dark. He was darker than me. I'm lighter than he is. So I asked the crowd, I said, well, why? I asked him in front of everybody, I said, are you a black Muslim? He said, no. I said, why you call me a black Muslim then and I'm lighter than you? So the priest that came up after me, he came up and said, that man, that young, well, I was a young man, that young man act like he's angry. I wasn't angry. I was just telling him, don't call me out of my name. I said, if you're called a black Muslim in your country, then okay, you can call me that. But if you're not called a black Muslim in your country, then don't call me one. You call me by what I am. I'm not from Pakistan. I'm from Africa. My parents are from Africa. Not my parents, but my ancestors are from Africa. So call me after that. So I'm an African American. So please call me an African American. If you don't call me that, call me a Muslim American. But I am American. My passport is American. My birth certificate is American. But I am American. But I'm not a black American. I am an African American. I am from Africa, born in America, so call me an African American. That is more dignified than just standing up there saying that you're a black American, especially a name that you didn't identify yourself with. You never called yourself to that. So since you did not give you that name when you came over here, you shouldn't wear it now. It's my opinion. But if you want to keep it, Imam Muhammad don't like it. His father didn't even like it. But his father used it because that's what most of the people like. When they said it, they didn't like colored. It seemed to me like colored is a little better than black. Because we all got colors, but we're still not considered colored, we considered now black. And instead of calling us colored now, they want to call us people of color. What's the difference between that? People of color or colored people? It's the same thing. So if we won't accept that, then why should we accept something that's more extreme than that? So we don't have to make an issue out of it, but let us use that among ourselves. Just refer to ourselves as African Americans rather than the blacks. Black is from nowhere. Where's black from? We know where every other ethnic people are from, but where's black from? The Africans don't call themselves black either. I was there. They call themselves by the name of their country. I was there. They didn't call themselves that. They call themselves that in South Africa because of who ruled in South Africa and in America. On 2 places on earth that they call people by complexion. So why should we accept that complexion tag when it's not used anywhere on the earth? And the earth is bigger than just those 2 places, South Africa and America. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're very honored to have Imam A.K. Hassan with us to enlighten us. I feel like this is almost a fireside chat. You know, it moves kind of slow, but the ambience of the room is sort of like a fireside chat and sharing, and very appreciative of everyone that came out today. This is a picture of Dr. Zakiya Muhammad, whose collection is in our Imam Haroum and Luella Archive Library. It's open for you to view, even though we're kind of storing some things with the banquet. Wanted to briefly mention, prior to bringing up, we've got Sister Elaine, did he cover enough on Sister Ortiz? Okay, Sister Elaine, what I noticed, Sister Elaine was very close to Sister Ortiz. When I came in 1983, they were both working in the secretarial staff. But anyway, Sister Ortiz just embodies a lot. Could everyone in tuxedo please come over by the stand here? Our Kareem Safir, he's well over his time. No, I wanted them to come on and do the photo. I'm just kind of winding it up. But anyway, we will then have Brother Kenneth and Brother Ibrahim. Brother Ibrahim, okay, for the sake of time, Brother Ibrahim is going to pass on the National Association of Professionals Against Crime. Sister Karima, did you have anything to add? Sister Karima was a part of that organization that her father and Ibrahim's father incorporated, and she got a lot of training in those organizations because early on, you know, Brother Malik and many of the parents would give their children responsibilities that would normally be given to someone much older because they knew you could handle it. Okay, and in her coming up, I'm just going to briefly mention Dr. Anyon Palmer over the Marcus Garvey School. He started it with his life savings of $20,000. He was a professor at Cal State LA at the time. And the school is still in existence. I was by there as I visited our ISLA school. So I did want to mention, we're not just focusing on what the Muslims did, but Dr. Anyon was respected, and he's still respected by the Muslims. When I mentioned his name at ISLA school, they were like, well, this was his building or something, you know. But anyway, I know Brother Matt Ewan used to go up there And some of our grandchildren and great-grandchildren are attending that school right now. So Karima has come here all the way from Arizona, and she's one of our own with her lovely husband. We appreciate you guys and your time. And everybody always got a little smile when you talk. They said the Muhammad Ali story, everybody got a Brother Malik story. Okay, because he was all the way on it, and his lovely wife Jacqueline was part of our temple.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am the fourth child from Abdul Malik Salim Sr. and Malika Salim. There was 5 of us, and I think most of you know that my middle brother, Elijah Bilal Salim, was murdered 25 years ago. And heart broke my mother and kept my father moving. And I've been attending this masjid since I was probably 10 years old. I attended Sister Claire Muhammad School, Sister Daima, Ibrahim. Sister Lang was one of our teachers. I call her my Auntie Chandra because she's known me since I was a baby, since I was born. You know, they're all our aunties and uncles. But I remember being over at the masjid in Compton off of Palmer when my father was the imam, and running around that masjid and the night of power. My mother pinching us to stay awake. But Youth Crime Prevention Program was birthed out of National Coalition of Professionals Against Crime that Imam Nuri Salam spearheaded with my father. And I was probably 10 years old when I wrote my first grant letter. And I began to write letters to all of the different businesses throughout the community to get fundraising funds and trinkets, things that we can give to all of the other youth that was working in the program and their families, because a lot of the youth that came through the Youth Crime Prevention Program, their parents were in prison, they were on drugs. I came from a 2-parent household, so my parents became the parents of everybody in these neighborhoods. And it's interesting because as I sat here today, a very good friend of mine from Compton that I grew up with, she sent me a text to remind me of who my father and my mother was to her and the work ethic that she gained by working in Youth Crime Prevention Program. She's been working for the DMV in the San Bernardino area for over 20 years now. Her son, who she reared with the same teaching, is serving in the military. He's in the Navy. And so the legacy continues to move on. The Salim family has been growing. My brothers, they're married and continuing having more children. But Youth Crime Prevention Program was a root in Compton, and it grew out of Compton and it moved all over northern Southern California. It moved over into Atlanta, it moved over into Chicago, it moved over into Oregon and all these other different states. And when my father hit the highway, he hit the highway with the agenda to make sure that there was another young person who will be able to buy their own school clothes, who will be able to get to school, learn life skills, and maybe one day become an entrepreneur themselves, so that the infestation of gang banging and drug use did not continue to consume another member out of those families. So I stand here today as a product of Malik and Malika Salim. I have 4 degrees, 1 in early childhood development. I have 2 master's degrees, 1 in psychology and a distinction in adolescent psychology and a degree in behavioral science. I am a master clinician. I work with children with autism, have been working with children with autism for 30 years. My daughter has been a part of the going on the tours with Dr. Salam. When she was from middle school through high school, she attends OU University. She is on the rowing team. She just acquired her full athletic scholarship. She's rowing. She went from running track and cross country into rowing. and she studies biomedical engineering, pre-med, and finance. And she also has an academic scholarship. So I'm that product of Malik Salim and Malika Salim, and I thank you all tonight for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Takbir. We're winding down the program. We want to thank those of you who are still here. We're not at the end, but we're winding down. We want to thank you who remain behind. I have the honor of introducing someone who was outside what we've been talking about mostly are the Islamic education and Islamic institutions. I have the honor of introducing someone who is a pioneer of educational institutions outside that framework. Her name is, well, when I first met her, her name was Donna Evans. She was born March 31st, 1972 in Los Angeles. Her father, Raymond Dunn, was a landscaper by trade, and her mother, Farrell Brooks, was an actress. She goes by the title of Mwalimu. Mwalimu is a Swahili word, but more specifically, a title meaning good teacher, especially one who teaches children. I've known her since college. We met at Cal State Long Beach, where I majored in journalism. She majored in recreation, but then she caught the bug. She graduated, and her vision to educate our children began right around the corner on Salt Lake. Right around the corner. She is the founder of the Mandela Children's Learning Village, an independent school in the Richland Farms area of Compton. She started a child care center on Salt Lake. When the student population grew, she changed the name to Children's Space, and she took it to Linwood. And from Linwood, she made another transition to Compton, and she started a school called Mandela Children's Learning Village. She's downstairs in a wheelchair, unable to come up, so she's watching this on closed circuit television. I would like each of you, when we leave, when we do adjourn, if you would shake her hand, congratulate her for the work she's done. She's passed the management mantle on to her daughter, Shari, her oldest daughter. Her youngest daughter is here. Her name is Virgo. At Mandela Children's Learning Village, they are focused on providing individualized curriculum based on core skills at the highest standards. Mandela has produced people who are civic-minded and family-oriented. The alums have gone on to be accomplished musicians, artists, nurses, doctors, scientists, professors, homemakers, and much more. Now, she's in a wheelchair. Her hair is completely white. You can't miss her. So if you would, go downstairs. She's watching on closed circuit TV. I want to say Sister Mwalimu will have an award for you. She has left the building. Well, at 81 years old, you know, we can understand. They can be reached at www.mandelachildrensvillage.com. And they're on Tichenor off of Alameda. I've been there. It's a fantastic school and one worthy of our admiration. Now, I think we had someone else who wanted to speak. Brother Kenneth. Brother Kenneth?
Assalamu alaikum, y'all. I just wanted to just reiterate what the sister just said about Malik Salim. Me coming out the penitentiary in 2002, I got word when I was in prison what masjid to go to because I'm originally out of Watts. And the next thing to me was Compton, but I didn't want to go to Compton because Compton and Watts is like the hub and the dub, so I ain't really went nowhere. Long Beach was a little farther out. So when I touched Long Beach, this was the only place I knew in Long Beach because I ain't never been in Long Beach. People in Watts don't come to Long Beach or go to Compton, really. You stay in Watts. That's how we was brought up. And I got to Long Beach and you know, I wanted to be of service. I mean, you know, that was part of my dean. That was part of what I raised my hand to. Let me go be of service somewhere. And I ran into Brother Malik. At the time, he was the treasurer, so he was doing everything you're supposed to do at a masjid. And what I just heard, he was doing a whole bunch of educational good things for community people and community services. And I just let him know, man, I'm fresh out the penitentiary, man. That's all I know how to do is sell dope and do what I do, man. I need some help. He said, wait a minute, brother. He looked at me and I looked him in his eyes and, you know, I was sincere. I mean, you know, the streets is all I know. So, I mean, if I get turned away from here, I know I'm going to end up back in the penitentiary. Brother Malik looked at me and he told me to sit down for a minute, him, Alfonso, and Omar. Them was the ones that had the masjid. And I sat and I waited, you know, did the Juma Friday with him and all that. He told me to just grab the broom, man, just clean up the bathrooms. He telling me what to do in the masjid. I did it and he looked and he seen how I did it and he looking at me. He like, okay, brother, come back next week. I came back next week. From that week on, he was coming to get me from my house. He'd come get me, Kenny, get on up. And he'd be right outside waiting every Friday from that point, from the last, I think, about 10 years. Me and Malik was side by side, man, till he passed. And he gave me so many jewels, so much information that I stand on right now. I ain't gonna even lie. He told me some stuff 20 years ago that I'm seeing in the masjid right now. So he had some information and some knowledge that he was trying to give who he could. A lot of us wasn't hearing it. A lot of us was, you know, turning our face against it. But I understand what he meant when he was saying it, when he said it. But I just wanted to give a tribute to him because that's my heart right there. You know, that's the only brother that really showed me some love. And when my father died, he was asking me certain questions about my father's condition, not knowing that he was sick as well. So that kind of hit me double dose with that. Because I'm telling him how my father was going through the transformation when he passed. And I guess Malik was taking that information and trying to, you know, suppress what was going on with him. But all praise be to Allah, he's well, he's in a good place. And I appreciate all the other people that's in here. The email, the brother over there, the brothers that I know that I've been here with them. So I mean, it's just love. I love my community. That's all I can say. Peace and blessings to all y'all. Thank you for coming out. Masjid Al Sharif. Y'all have a beautiful day. She put it together. She did that. Oh, she did that. That's her right there.
He said, I missed my prom. I said, will you wear a tuxedo, Brother Kennedy? He said, yeah, I missed my prom. You know, I was out there getting in trouble. So I never got fitted and suited and booted. We said, go on over there. You're welcome. Thank you. Sister Daima Abdul Mujib is kind of going to represent what this was really all about, and that's those teachers and staff in these Los Angeles schools that was, established to give a more quality education to our children. And her mother, Sister Amira Abdul Mujib, was my supervisor at the school. So, Sister Daima. Like I said, that's really what it's about. You know, we don't do the ancestor thing like some of the people on TV and, you hear the African things. It's like, but they are very special and they are not forgotten. And as they say, the science say the DNA is in us, but we worship only God, but we love and remember the lessons, the training, the teaching, the love, and just bringing up all of their pictures and their bios really just made me smile. I just felt like, I'm in the company of my colleagues that I work with. So this is really to say that we need to do this, periodically to recognize, we know we go to the janaza, but let's think about the work, the sacrifice and the legacy that they left with us. Thank you. One of our own.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all. This is an awesome event. Of course, we, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but our faith says reverence the wombs and the fathers, of us. So without them, as the name of this program is, on the shoulders of our ancestors, we would not be. So I'm just honored and humbled to be here in that space. I'll start with Imam Ayman Abdul Majid. So this is my stepdad, but he was my dad. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. Just letting everybody know, inshallah, because sometimes we see the faces of the young and we don't connect them. But he married my mom in 1977 and he was my dad, and just awesome in the community under Imam Abdul Karim Hassan for many years, and just worked well at Bilal ibn Rabah. I hear a lot of people sharing, the testimonies of him speaking and always recognizing them and just being a beacon of truth, there. Also working with the other family, the Walk for Wellness, bringing health to Leimert Park area, very important. And then before he passed his wife, and he would sell in Leimert Park the bean pie. And y'all know he was the fish crew, right? You spoke about, one of the brothers spoke about Peru. Was it you, Email? I think you spoke about Peru. So yeah, the fish crew. And that's where he was. And then Craig, right? Community to remove all racial images of the divine from worship. I might not have had it, but yeah. And he was the chairperson for the West Coast, I believe, with that. So alhamdulillah for that legacy. I remember as a little bitty girl going to the marches. We're gonna march up on the church, and you're gonna, we're gonna tell you about, that Caucasian images, Brother Wali Ali and the song Images, and Reuben Khatib. We had music and stuff in the masjid. It was awesome. The ensemble, Bilalian ensemble. Speaking about community, I don't know, the East Wing. We were in the East Wing in Compton. It was huge there when the school was there, and we would have community programs. So I just always remember that, and that, helped me, and it molded me. And so just a little bit of that. And then being a principal's daughter, Sister Amira Abdul Majid, this is my Umi, my mom, alhamdulillah. Reverencing the womb that bore me. And she just instilled everything in me. Everything. And from my brother to my sister and myself. My brother's incarcerated. Please keep him in prayer. Abdullah Abdul Majid. But he's right, in Islam. One of the times, sometimes it happens. He was like, the first book I found, Daima, was the Holy Quran. I said, that's right. You the servant. Your mom and dad wouldn't have it any other way. And my sister, she is an educator for LA Unified. She's been for almost 30 years now. And she has 6 children. She's homeschooling them. So we know where that came from. Elijah Muhammad, Sister Clara Muhammad, And she's like the best teacher ever. I myself, I became a substitute teacher working in not LA Unified. When I got to be a sub, those folks was cutting up. I was like, whoop. So I went over to Paramount Unified School District, and then I was at Centinela Valley, and that's high school. I love high school. But yes, I do know how to manage that classroom. I'm old school. And I figured out, you know, just as long as the principal doesn't have to come, you're good. So, and I love all my students. I talk to them about my own. I have 4. Little one running around in there. I have a 27-year-old. He's an engineer at Arizona State University, alhamdulillah. And then my daughter, she's North Carolina A&T graduate, journalism, and she's in DC. And she's in grad school now, American University. And I have a 17-year-old Fahim, and he is at a charter school, and he's a natural artist. So inshallah, you know, we do what we can, but Fahim is at the masjid with his dad, alhamdulillah. You know, I know you like, you know, our baby's here with us, alhamdulillah, you know, my other ones there. You know, they still know La ilaha illallah, and inshallah, you know, they come back to us, but they are doing that where they are, alhamdulillah. So, I think that's about it for me. I will read this. Sister Chandra and Sister Elaine, Imam Abdul Karim Hassan, and all the others here, you know, from my rich history. May Allah be pleased with you all, my classmates. Okay, so it says, on the shoulders of our ancestors, beloved family of the deceased, loved ones, we honor your family and the pioneer who led you to enlightenment. The Black History, or our African American History, Moorish History Month 2023 event tells the world that we value their work and sacrifice. Inshallah, they will not be forgotten. So thank you. Alhamdulillah.
So real brief as we close out, this is a collaboration between Masjid Al-Sharif and the African American History and Culture Foundation. And just to let you know, we are the recipient of a grant, a congressional grant from Alan Lowenstein. He carried us, and we were asked to participate and to write the grant. And so we do have $25,000 scholarships that we need to give out. So any seniors, you know, I know we have them. It's hard to kind of reach out. I know Shahida, Naima's daughter has a 12th grader. So what we're doing, we're just sending all these applications out there due by May 21st. And then if we don't get enough seniors, we're gonna appeal. Can we give them to, you know, the college students? Or can we give it to the 11th graders? You know, because we got to get rid of the funds. So yeah, we got them in the bank. I know, we're pushing because the 11th graders are gonna need it, but you know, it's all in, we're trying to go with the, you know, the language of the grant. On our website, the little flyer that we have, my phone number is probably on there. They put it on all of it, but definitely give me any names. We also, like I said, been doing HBCU tours since 2006. And so this year we do have a grant where the students do not have to pay. And we are headed, inshallah, to Atlanta, to the AU Center, as I said, Morehouse School of Medicine, Tuskegee, and Alabama State. And we're hoping to visit that lynching museum down in Montgomery that Brian Stevenson has set up. So I'm, you know, hoping that the students are good with that and their parents are good with that. We do allow some parents to go with us. We meet at the Burnett Library the last Friday, and it was packed. So we got more than the number of students that we need. We were just going to take 20 students. And we're networking with a brother down in Atlanta that has a transportation thing so that he could get the transportation contract once we get there and do our ground transportation. So that's April 10th through the 14th, leaving out of Ontario the night of the 9th. And we'll arrive in Atlanta, inshallah, at 5 a.m. and we'll be coming back late Friday. So we'll be moving around. As always, we ask for your prayers, but that is open too. You know, basically what I was telling the students is, you know, you need to bring me your report card because you need to be in good standing. And if you're not, we can help you if you want help. You know, we're not going to say because the student got a D, they can't go, but we want you to address that. We had given them about 30 different characteristics of things that they could do that they should do anyway and get points, you know. Visit your counselor. Let me see your report card. You get, you know, got a 2.5, you get so many points. 3.0, you bring your mama to the workshop, you come to the workshop, you do community service. You write a proposal for an entrepreneurial thing that you're thinking about. You know, so there were many things. These were just suggestions, but letting them know you're gonna need their portfolio and their resume anyway. And we also, you know, put in time. We got a computer center. You know, we bought computers with our grant funds, and we have come down to, you know, work with the parents on the FAFSA and whatever they need help them write them letters, you know, for college, their applications. So, you know, again, the tour's coming up, and we also plan to do, and we're funded for a California tour. You know, I always tell the students, we going to these black schools. I'm not, you know, I'm a graduate of Cal State Dominguez and Clark Atlanta. I said, but you need to know what's in your own backyard. We've been telling them about that Promise Grant, where coming out of high school, you can get that free tuition for them first 2 years. And we did honor the vice president here on June 5th of this year, this past year. So again, those things are available. We have 17 workshops. We're pushing the trades too. You know, when you're in the public school or in the school, they don't want you to deal with the trades. They just say everybody go to college. There's nothing wrong with that. But Long Beach City has about 100 different trades. You know, you can be a chef, or auto mechanic, or whatever. You know, and then we know the journeyman travels with becoming iron person, whatever you want to do. And you don't have to do just one thing. You know, you can go to college and do a trade. You know, and then you got money in your pocket to have a livable wage. So we're saying the achievement gap equals the economic gap. So you got to, you know, address the economic gap in order to make, you know, progress. We thank everybody for coming. We have probably our target group is 16 to 22. You know, I have several interns. I don't know if Yusuf is still here. Yusuf McKee, he's been on board as one of my interns. We got funding for interns, you know, so we, you know, try to hire our own, you know, to spend, we got to get rid of it by August. So, you know, again, Masjid Al-Sharif have always accommodated us free. This time we were able to make a you know, a little $1,000, you know, because they said, you know, this is what you get if you go rent a place. So I said, we rent Blair Hall, you know, really, you know, so it's, you know, the same way with this event as I close out. I'm not telling the Department of Education, of Higher Education, that I'm here teaching religion today. I said, we are honoring people in the LA area that establish quality schools for the disenfranchised. I think we fit that category. You know, I didn't, you know. So, you know, a lot of times we too quiet and too shy about being who we are. We really weren't ready for a grant, right? And we were trying to figure out all the technology. You know, you got to get SAM's ID and unique entity, all of these things, and navigate grants.gov. And so I called the people in DC. I said, man, we're struggling with all of this. In fact, we had also had a death in one of our staff. And they said, Dr. Salam, don't worry about that. We got you, you know. And I said, right, DC is all black, you know, and they just pulled us through, you know. It's like, don't even worry about it. Y'all gonna do the funeral, whatever you tried to do. You know, if you can't figure out that technology, then just fax it in, you know. So, you know, we got 250,000, you know, their Boys and Girls Club got $1 million here in Long Beach. But we want to be good stewards of our funding. We want to make our community proud. It was not something I was pursuing, you know, like they say, I thought I had retired, whatever that is. I'm working so hard. You know, I might as well be back at work for real. But nevertheless, I felt that we want to show our children that it's okay to work with the government. You know, you're American. When we go on these trips, I said, we African American. I said, but we American. You know, all this, when we go to DC, I said, all this is yours. You know, and it's not like January 6th. You got to get your congressmen and all of them, and they pick you up and walk you under the ground, right? And then you do the tour. And so, if for nothing else, then I think it was necessary to do this for them. And then now I can tell them how you write a grant. And, you know, what's involved, and don't give up, and just, you know. So thank you all for coming. It's always a blessing. Whoever Allah bless to come is important. We were able to hire Kareem Safir, the photographer, you know. He don't come cheap. He gave us a discount, but we were able to, you know, give him a small $450, you know, to take some pictures and whatever you want to do. That's what the grants say, photographer. You know, well, who in our community that take pictures? So that's a blessing, you know, for me to be able to, you know, we have a staff, got to make payroll in a couple of days, and my interns, everybody finna get paid. You know? So, you know, we're learning though. It's no real retirement for us, really. You're gonna always find something that's constructive to do. There's my son, Ibrahim. He's telling me to shut it down, shut it down. Yeah, Ibrahim has gone on about 10 tours with us. You know, I'm the last woman standing though, you know, but I can't keep getting on them planes and wrestling with them children all night, you know. But he's taken off from his job. He said he already told him, I need a week off. So we're good. So Assalamu alaikum, may Allah bless you. Thank all of you again for coming out. Thank you, Brother Ahmed, LC Shabazz, and Murad Rahman. Yeah, we pushing. We got to figure it out. We just got to get the language right and probably call in and say, I sent it to every school in the district, you know, because they don't apply. People don't apply for scholarship. What you want me to do? Can we extend it a little bit? Oh, we need to close out with prayer. Brother Mufti, Brother Imam is right here. Brother Imam, can we just get... All right, man, made it back from over. Boy, I must really have you praying, right?
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Nice evening, good time. Thank you for all. The Imam, Sister Salam. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.